ZBA number 21-004, special exception application. Avenru Development Group requests to grant a special exception pursuant to Section 5, Article B2B of the zoning ordinance for an 84-unit multifamily residential dwelling on property situated off West Swanzey Road and shown at tax map 72, lot 98. The subject property is located in the business district. ZBA number 21-005, special exception application. Dory Maston requests to grant a special exception pursuant to Section 3AA, Article B of the zoning ordinance to construct a detached accessory dwelling unit at 326 Matthews Road. The subject property is shown at tax map 38, lot 13, and is located in the residence district. ZBA number 21-006, variance application. 17 Suburban LLC requests to grant a variance from Section 5, Article B3 of the zoning ordinance to construct a 100-square-foot addition that would encroach on the side yard setback at 23 Suburban Acres Road. The subject property is shown at tax map 18, lot 82, and is located in the business district. Other discussion and other business may be required.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First action is to check with our board to find out whether any of them believe that we have a regional impact of any one of the cases that we might be hearing tonight. Anyone on the board feel that any case that we have coming before us tonight might be of regional impact?
Well, just a question, if the 21-005, I'm sorry, 004, because of the lack of water over in that section of town, if that could be viewed as a regional impact, that's a question to you. Over.
Yeah. When we think regional, we think other towns. I think, unless, and I would stand corrected if anyone has a different thought. But I think that's what I'm thinking. The intention of this is that is that what you mean?
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah, the impact as far as fire suppression and ability to access water over in that general area, and it may not rise to that level. That's why it's just a question to you.
Certainly, I think it might have. It might affect the neighborhood, but I don't think it's going to affect Winchester or Chesterfield likely. But that's my own thought. Of the rest of the board, if anyone else has any comments to that effect, I certainly would entertain them.
If I could interject, Keith,
sure.
There's no issue with availability of water. The West Swansea Water Company is capable of connecting for potable water, and just as we did at Whitcomb Hall, any development, whether it be industrial or multifamily or retail, as they did with Dollar General, they have the opportunity to put in cisterns and pumps. So water is not an issue.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Would someone like to make a motion relative to the regional impact?
I would make a motion that none of the applications on tonight's agenda appear to have a regional impact.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brian. It's been moved and seconded to that nothing on tonight's agenda has the potential to have a regional impact. Any question on the motion? Beverly?
Okay, Ann Karasinski?
So I'm going to vote yes, it does not have a regional impact.
Okay, thank you. Bill Hotwalker?
Yes.
Brian Rutgers?
Yes.
Keith Tebow,
Yes.
Bob Mitchell,
Yes.
Eric Callio.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. We have minutes from our meeting of January 11th. We do have a quorum here present of those who were at that meeting, myself, Ann, Bill, and Bob. Entertain a motion on those minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Bill. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Any question on the motion? Did anyone pick up anything in the minutes needs to be updated or edited, changed, moved around? No? Okay. All right, hearing none. Beverly?
Ann Karasinski,
No, yeah,
Yes.
Bill Hotwalker,
Yes.
Brian Rutgers.
Same.
he wasn't here.
Thank you. Bob Mitchell,
Yes.
Eric Callio,
Not present at the meeting.
abstain. Okay, thank you. Keith
Yes,
Tebow.
abstain.
Yes, yes,
Okay, the motion passes.
thank you. All right, one last item before we move on into our applications. I'd like to welcome a couple of folks that are here for the first time, Wayne Lecklider and Jillian. I think she goes by Jill Exel. Welcome. Thank you for coming and for being interested in serving as alternates. And I want to also thank Bill for his recruitment of such potential alternates. What I'd like to do, given that this is their first meeting, give them the opportunity to observe our meeting this evening. We have a full agenda that has a variety of applications on it. So I think at the end of the meeting, we'll regroup, and unless any board member sitting here wants to comment any more on that, I'd like to do is give them the opportunity to listen in, and then see if they want to continue to work with this group. And does any of our board members have any comments or concerns about taking this approach?
Keith, despite our conversation earlier, I do think they should have the opportunity to introduce themselves to the board.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that board members should have the opportunity to determine whether they could be seated or be sworn in tonight or not.
Okay, so I guess we'll ask Wayne. I guess we'll start with Wayne because he happens to be the first one listed to maybe give us. Wayne and I are nearly neighbors, so I know Wayne and what he's done, other work he's done in the community. But Wayne, if you just talk a little bit about yourself and why you might be interested in the ZBA, it'd be great.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, my name's Wayne Lecklider. I've lived in town for about 33 years. I own a little bit of property here in town. And I just thought it'd be interesting. Bill had asked me if I'd be interested in sitting on the board as an alternate. And I thought it would be a good way to understand what you folks do and appreciate what you do. So I look forward to working with you. I know I see a lot of faces I recognize, Mr. Mitchell, and good group of people. So.
That's true. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Wayne at this point, board members?
I would just say that I've worked with Wayne on school board budget committee, and I think he'd be a great addition to the ZBA.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. That's essentially what I was going to say. I've really been impressed with Wayne's acumen, his ability to present himself well, sometimes in the face of amazing animosity, but carried himself well through the process. And Keith and I have, I'm sure Keith can speak on his own behalf, but we've certainly benefited by the leadership that he provided to the budget committee. And main reason I asked him was because since he's no longer chair of the budget committee, he may have some opportunity to give us some of his experience and his time.
Terrific. Anyone else? I guess we'll put Jill on the spot right now, and we'll allow Jill to give us a little of a similar background and what brought her to this meeting this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for allowing us to view the meeting and attend. I appreciate it. And yes, I do go by Jill or Jillian. Either is completely fine.
Okay.
I served with Wayne on the budget committee for the last 3 years. I'm a local realtor as well, so I know Bill through that channel. I was actually born and raised in Swanzey and have relocated here for the past 7 years, raising my family here because I love the area, I love the town. I think that being part of the zoning board would not only help with professional development, but also help to serve the town. So that is my interest.
Terrific. Well, welcome, Wayne. Welcome, Jill.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ann. Any other questions, or Brian?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So
Sure.
where the two of them are longtime residents and/or are from the area, and they've obviously been involved in the town politics to some degree, whether it's the school district or whatnot. They've submitted their applications. Should we just ask them if they want to be voted in as alternates and throw them right in trial by fire, or should we get
Yes,
there?
let's do that. I'll second that.
Ask them whether they'd like to be sworn in as alternates. Is that the way I took what you were saying, Brian?
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
Okay. And
I'm assuming by their applications they do, so.
okay. I guess I'll ask them one each of it, and Ann has consent. Does anyone have any problem with that, or any issues with that? Okay. I guess, Wayne, would you want to consider being sworn in to this evening's meeting with the potential that you might be seated for one or more of the applications we have?
I'm okay with that, Keith.
Okay. Jill, are you the same? Are you the same, or you would prefer to observe for the evening?
Trial by fire is what I do best. So yeah.
All right. All right.
I'll make the motion. I'll take Bob's job, and I'll make a motion that we accept both applications as Wayne and Jill as new alternates to the zoning board.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Bob. It's been moved and seconded to, I guess, go through the process, and I think Bill would handle this if it need to be, of swearing in both Wayne and Jill to the zoning board this evening. Any question on the motion? Don't see any. I'll ask Beverly to call the roll.
Okay. Ann Karazinski,
Yes.
Bill Hotwalker,
Yes.
Brian Rutgers,
Yes.
Bob Mitchell,
Yes.
Eric Callio,
Yes.
Keith Tebow.
And I'll vote in the negative.
Okay.
Keith, if I might make a comment.
Yes.
Bob, I fulfilled my commitment to you. You fulfilled your commitment to me. Should you choose to continue, God bless you. I hope you do. But this gives you the opportunity to exit gracefully if you so choose.
Ah,
I appreciate that, Bill.
And Beverly, just a point of clarification. So for appointments of alternates, that's just the regular members that would vote on that. So it would just be Keith and Bill and Brian.
Okay, so you have 3 yes and 1
Yeah.
no.
thank you, Matthew. So Bob,
There.
Yes.
I guess the question arises, given the evening that you're here tonight, are you considered an alternate for this evening, or are you going to maybe just observe yourself the rest of the evening?
No, I had understood I would serve for an alternate through the next town. Well, actually, we've had the town meeting, haven't we?
Interesting timing.
It's the 9th, Bob, March
Yeah, that's
9th.
right. It's in a week or so. We have it
No,
delivered.
March 9th.
Right. I had planned to attend this meeting. So
Okay.
I'm here.
Very good.
So Bob, you're going to give us another year?
I'm working on it, Bill.
All right. Thank you all. So we'll move forward then.
So just quickly, sorry, Keith, sorry to interrupt, but to move forward with the appointment, we would need to administer the oath of office.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that would be, I believe, Bill is up for that, is in his role as a select person.
Yes, Bill, do you have the oath that I sent you earlier
I
today?
do. I do. Do Jill and Wayne each have a copy?
They do not. So
Okay.
it would just be kind of you can state it and they can repeat after you.
Right. And then the first part, the whereas part, does Keith read that after they've been sworn in?
Or do I just sign that and provide
He
that
just,
to,
yeah, he'll just need to sign that.
and I need to do it in front of a notary?
I think if you just if you sign that at the town clerk's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Wayne,
I'll codify it.
Wayne, do you have the ability to access video?
Yes, I should.
Because you've got to show us all your license, according to Matthew. We
Just
can't trust your voice.
Photo identification.
How's that?
Good. Jill,
Recognize.
do you guys each have your license or other photo ID that you can, there you go. That's perfect. God bless you. Great.
You see it, Matthew?
It's the governor's rules. It's not my rules. So.
Oh, Matthew, take credit for it. All right, you guys ready? We'll do you both together. I'm going to start with I and then ask you to say your name, and then I'll do 3 or 4 words at a time. I
Jillian Exel,
I, Wayne Leclerc,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent
all the duties incumbent
on me as an alternate zoning board of adjustment member according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution
of the Constitution
and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
And raise your hand.
State of New Hampshire.
Raise your hand. So help me God.
So help me God.
So help
God
me.
bless you. You're in. Whoa, they are going to have so much fun.
Hey, Bill,
Yep.
is this the part when they moved to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Careful, Brian, you might get written up in the Sentinel.
That's right.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
All right, so Matthew, I sign these and bring them to the clerk's office?
That's right. He knows you'll be dropping them off. And then once you bring them to Ron, if you could just let me know, and then I can reach out to Jill and Wayne and let them know at their convenience to stop by the town clerk's office to sign them.
And Keith?
And then Keith.
I've got the forms here. I'll drop them off probably in the morning.
Okay, so if you drop the forms off, Keith, then I'll sign your forms.
Okay,
Yeah.
that
Yep.
works. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. I think what I'd like to do in light of our new board members is to take just 5 minutes and maybe give a sort of a primer about how I see the role of a zoning board member, and and what it means. One of the more important issues that we tend to try to pay attention to is something called ex parte conversations. Because as a zoning board in general, we have quasi judicial duties. We act as a judge. We take the town zoning ordinance, the law, and we make a determination as to whether or not some relief from that law should be given, but that our decisions have the effect of law. So as such, there's some things, there's not a lot that goes with that if you follow a few rules or a few behaviors. And probably the most important one is that as you go about your day, moving forward, you don't discuss with other members of the board or members of the public or applicants a case until it's decided. You don't have those conversations, and they're very easy to fall into. But ex parte discussions are not allowed, and we don't, in essence, if we're having a discussion with another person about the case, all of us that are sitting on that case ought to have the opportunity to hear the same things that are being discussed. So ex parte is an important thing to keep in mind when you're at the transfer station or market basket or at town hall or almost anywhere else where the conversation can come up. So it's really important for you to know that, because we are making determinations that have ramifications in the future, potential ramifications in the future. So know that that's the role of a zoning board is unlike a planning board who doesn't have the ability to change a town law, in essence, an ordinance, or to give relief or to give a person the ability. It's what a zoning board is for. We're intended to look at a very black and white law and give people or not relief from that law, from what's, or give them approval based on what our ordinance says. In the case of a special exception, give our approval based on some parameters. So it's important you keep that in mind as we move forward, should you be seated for a case, and to just the more you take this in, the more you'll understand it, and we deal with a lot of issues, sometimes repetitively, and sometimes it's a one-off. Some people come in and you've never heard it before, and you have to deal with it from that perspective. So, but we've got a good core group of people that's been around a long time that I have incredible respect and faith in, including our staff at Town Hall that assist us all the way through the process. So, so before we heard our first case, which I don't think either one of you are likely to be seated for this case, you'll get a chance to observe how we go through this process for at least one case moving forward. Anyone else has anything to add, or otherwise we'll move forward?
Keith, just one point of clarification.
Thanks, Bill.
Just want to tell you that was an excellent primer, however to describe it. Tremendous explanation of how the process works. The only clarification I'd like to make is that a decision isn't over until it actually is over. I mean, an application isn't over until it actually is over. There are appeal periods.
Thank you.
And until the zoning board's decision goes to the planning board, it really isn't over. So you could potentially have a case that you may not be able to discuss outside of this meeting for a year. And it does happen. And what Keith said is absolutely true. People are going to come up to you. People are going to call you. And my response is, if you really want me to talk to you about it, you have to understand I'm going to have to recuse myself. And if I recuse myself, then you may not get a full board. And people seem respectful of that. And I just refer them to either Matthew Bachler or Mike Jasmine.
Exactly. Thank you, Bill. That's a good point, and one that is easy to forget as you're moving forward with development in the town and some of the work that we've done. Any other board members have anything to toss out at this time, or Matthew?
Not at this time. Just to echo what Keith and Bill said, just know that I am a resource for you. I know I shared some information with both Jill and with Wayne, just some kind of background information on the zoning boards of adjustments in the state of New Hampshire, but there's a lot of information that I sent to you. So after you've had a chance to review things, always feel free to reach out to me and I can help you with legal questions, procedural questions. That's part of what my job is. So always feel free to call or email me.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Hearing no other comments, we'll move into our first of 4 public hearings for the evening. ZBA 21-003, a variance application is the first one up. Bill Hattendorf and Sheila Heffernan request to grant a variance from Section 11, Article B1 of the zoning ordinance to construct an addition and front porch at 7 Pitcher Point that would expand an existing non-conforming structure. Subject property is shown at tax map 18, lot 173, and is located in the Residence District. For this case, we'll seat Bob Mitchell for Adam. So seated for the case will be myself, Bob, Brian Rogers, Bill, and Ann Karazinski. Before I get into this case to start with, something I should have taken care of a moment ago. We do have 4 cases on the agenda tonight, which is above average at the very least. The board itself at 9:30 will make a determination, at 9 o'clock, I'm sorry, will make a determination as to whether or not they will move forward beyond the case that they have in front of them this evening. We've all been there and have long ago decided that we get a couple of hours into this work and you start to lose focus potentially or the ability to do your job the best you can and on some evenings. And so at about 9 o'clock or so, we'll take a poll of the board to see whether or not we will go through with if there are any applications left to take up tonight, we will make a determination at that point whether or not we want to continue on through and be able to finish up. So that's just something I did want to put out there. Any questions for anyone on that or? Okay. Thank you. Bill Hattendorf, we teed up ZBA 21003, located tax map 18, lot 173. I'll ask Matthew to give us a little recap of what we're looking at here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. So I'm just going to pull up an aerial map of the property here. So as you can see, the property is located on Wilson Pond. It's just off of Old Homestead Highway. The property boundaries are outlined in red, and you'll see the existing single-family home on the property is located towards the western side of that lot. Just scrolling to the next slide here. This is showing the existing conditions kind of in the lighter orange is showing the footprint of the dwelling. And the proposed addition to the dwelling is shown in the darker orange. So coming off of the eastern side of the house, this is a 486 square foot addition. And then the project also includes a redesign of the front entrance to the house. So the existing house is considered to be a non-conforming structure because it's located within the 125-foot setback from Wilson Pond. And that 125-foot setback line is shown up here, actually along Pitcher Point Road. There's also an encroachment in the 20-foot side setback. So that's from the western side property line. So for those 2 reasons, and also there's a encroachment in the 30-foot setback as well from the front property line. So because of those encroachments into the setbacks, the property or the dwelling is considered to be non-conforming. So as Keith mentioned, Section 11, Article B1 of the zoning ordinance allows for the restoration and maintenance and reconstruction of non-conforming structures as long as the cubic footage of the structure and the footprint is staying the same or is reduced in size. But with the proposed addition, that would be expanding that non-conforming structure. So we did post public hearing notices at Town Hall, as well as 3 other locations in town. Notices were sent to abutting property owners, and we also published the notice in the Keene Sentinel. We did receive an email from Rachel Elkins, who is an abutter, expressing her support for the project, and that was shared with the zoning board. And then I also provided a memo from the code enforcement officer just regarding, with some structural comments about that existing dwelling and what the property owners are looking to do. Other than that, I haven't received any comments from the public or other staff here at Town Hall. So with that, I know we're joined by the property owners as well as Don Scott, the landscape architect who put together the plan. So I'll turn it over to them to continue to provide information to the board on the application.
John, you want to go first?
This is Don Scott, and I'm a landscape architect representing the client, the owners here. And the emphasis I want to address here is that the expansion of this dwelling is essentially not making this this dwelling more non-conforming. And we're actually reducing some of the non-conformity by moving the breezeway that is on the front of the existing house, which you can see a small or light orange area under the proposed front patio. There's about a foot, 1 foot and 3 inches extension there, where we're pulling the house back by 1 foot and 3 inches. So we are pulling back on the 30-foot setback by taking that portion of the house out. And then the majority of the expansion is within the setbacks. As you can see, all of that area there is all within the setbacks except for the setback from the lake. One of the rules I like to hold to is that we're not making this structure more non-conforming. We're actually making it a little bit more conforming. The other issue I wanted to bring attention to is all the drainage issues on this, essentially this neighborhood. If you look up in the street area, I took extra measurements on Pitcher Point Road, and I went all the way out to Old Homestead. And I was actually expecting that the street runoff would be running into the ditches that are running parallel to Old Homestead. But in actuality, they're not. There's the apron onto Old Homestead, Route 32 is pitched back against that road. And you can see all my flow arrows there. They're all pointing to that corner where Matthew's got the pointer right now. So all of the water that's coming off of this road, in addition to the 2 properties across the street, their roof water, their driveway, all flows towards this property. And the majority of the flow enters the driveway area and the west edge corner where there's a fence line. And there are some water issues here. So the client has expressed that the driveway sometimes gets flooded right in front of the property where it says pervious brick patio. There's some pooling of water there. So what we're proposing is to do some infiltration techniques. There's a proposed infiltration swell to follow the fence line on the western edge. That'll help capture surface water, hold it for a longer period of time to get it to percolate into the ground and to be safely passed through groundwater to get to the lake rather than on the surface. And the same is going to be done with a rain garden infiltration structure on the front of the porch, which would be landscaped and planted with native plantings. So it would look like any normal planting bed that you would see in a neighborhood, but it would be a depression rather than a mound. And that depression will hold water, again, for a long enough period of time to get the water into the ground and down into the groundwater layers so that it can move towards the lake safely underground rather than on the surface. So we're hoping to address the excessive surface water coming off of the road and the other two properties across the street. And Matthew, if you could bring, I've added some photos that were from Google Maps that show the street view from Old, if you could find those photos that I added.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull them up here, Don. It's just gonna take 1 minute. I apologize for the scrolling.
That's fine.
Let's see.
Yep, right there.
These are the ones? Okay, yep.
This is looking off of Route 32. The Heffernan's house is that white one on the right, the second house in. And you can see that fence in front of it. That's where all the majority of the water is headed. And if you look at the property right in the foreground, their planting bed is bermed right there along the road. And the reason that's bermed is because their front lawn was getting flooded. And I spoke to the homeowner and they said they did that in order to keep the water out of their property. But what it's doing is actually the flow of the water is moving away from 32. And so we're actually capturing all of the water almost within this entire view of the road and concentrating it to that fence line, that 7 picture point. And so I just want to emphasize how much surface area is actually concentrated on this property. And we're hoping to address it with these infiltration techniques that will help get the water off the surface. That's one of the points I want to make. And the other was, that we're not trying to make this house more non-conforming, but actually less so by moving it away from, but we're essentially moving it away from the road there.
Don, I have this plan as well, the architectural drawings.
That's right. So this is the proposed floor plan, and you can see the bump out on the right. All right. Where you see the 2 lines there. And do you have the existing? That should be next to this drawing. There's the no, that's the proposed.
Here we go.
There's the existing. That's the existing. Oh, yeah, right there. So Bill, would you like to share your concerns and why we are looking to make these arrangements on the house?
Sure.
You're more acquainted with the interior than I am.
We fell in love with the property 19 years ago, I guess. Sheila's sister has a place just around the point, and we loved the area and had looked and looked, and finally this one came available. The house was not in very good shape at all, but Sheila could see the potential in the lawn and the yard and the lake and all that. We love the water. We love our neighbors. The problem is, as it was not easy going up and down stairs when we bought it 19 years ago. It's difficult to age in place, I guess is the term, to go up the stairs from the first to the second floor are quite steep. We had a Springer Spaniel for 14 years, and probably her last 6 or 7 years, she really couldn't go back. She could get up, but she couldn't go down the stairs without falling. So it was just sort of, anytime we were going up or down, you had to kind of carry her down the stairs. It's that steep. It was an agile dog generally, but we've looked and looked and tried to figure out how we could do this. Had a number of people come in and how can we turn the stairs or what can we do? And to put the stairs inside, to keep the stairs on the inside of the current footprint, There's just not room to do a straight stairway. It had to turn, and actually that works out better. But by putting in the turning stairway, we've sort of eliminated 2 rooms, the kitchen downstairs and the bathroom upstairs. It's because of the structure of the building, the very thick basement wall, and this used to be a barn across on the other side of Old Homestead Highway. And as they brought it over and rebuilt it, the framework is still there, which are very thick beams that support the thing. The only way to take those out upstairs is to then reconstruct something different, which is what the architect has done here. To make up for that space lost by the stairs on, well, actually it's 3 levels, we've asked to add on a living room to give us just a little more livable space to make up for some of what we're losing here. There are 100 other points I wanted to say. That's, we so value the place and would love to stay there and age in place and do it safely. And about the only way we're going to do that more safely is to redo the stairs and that sort of stuff. The stairs to the basement are precarious, sort of like a ladder going down to the basement. And this would fix all of that. There's some other water issues besides, like the water will leak in from the road. With all this water running across, it does leak into the basement a bit. And while redoing all of this and re-landscaping, I think we'd have a drier basement again.
Can I say, Matthew, we got a memo from the code enforcer. Can you share that?
Yeah, let me pull it up here. Okay, are you all able to see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
So this was provided to the zoning board earlier this week, or last week, excuse me.
So the story with this is the building code enforcer had visited with you, Bill and Sheila, to look at your situation. And I think it was his advice that you propose a bump out so that we could get a stairwell. Because initially you were looking to do an exterior stairway, but that was up against that western border, which you're already well within that setback and are only a few feet off the fence line. So that would exacerbate that whole issue.
Yep.
So it was actually his recommendation that maybe bumping the living room out and gives you the space for a proper stairwell.
Right.
And Keith, Mike Jasmine, the code enforcement officer, is in attendance tonight, so I just want to let him respond.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask. Mike.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome to the new board members. This was a walk I took probably 3 or 4 years ago now with Ed. Originally, and the plan has changed from when I first walked there with Ed, which is architecturally certainly for the better. I think the applicants have unfortunately realized that this thing's going to cost a lot more than what the original desires were on this project, which was a modest, let's hope we can fix it this way, which really wasn't going to happen, I don't think. They often talk about the basement. I think to call that a basement is unfair to proper basements. It's not a good height for most of it. For the new members who don't know, I'm 5'7", almost the same width as well, and it's not an easy basement to move about, quite frankly. And if I remember correctly, the washer and dryer was down there as well. And that was really, when I was talking to Ed, my main goal was to get it a proper set of stairs, and to try to get the washer and dryer upstairs if we were going to try to fix this thing, knowing full well that no matter what we suggested, would need a variance in the end. As my memo states, I would ask you to look at the drawings, and you can see the difference. Zweller and Michael did a really nice job of drawing things correctly as they, as they're paid to do.
Right.
The existing stair is borderline treacherous compared to what they have to do. Stairs always take way more space than people plan for or wish they did. But again, this is going on my memory, and I had the opportunity to speak on my own behalf, so I chose to do so. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
That's Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anything to add from the applicant's point of view at this point? You'll have plenty of time to talk, but we'll just, if you have anything to add, so we can, before we start taking some questions from either the board and or the public, because this is a public hearing.
Great. I would, Sheila Heffernan, I
Thank you.
would just like to add that we have a wonderful architect, has a person of incredible vision, and looking at this, and also the great work that Don Scott has done to help us understand how we can help to mitigate the drainage that's going through, because we care very much about Wilson Pond, and we appreciate that the town has been so good at keeping Wilson Pond still functioning, investing in the wonderful dam that you did. The original drawing actually was for a 2-story butt out into the east part of the lawn, and both Bill and I felt, although that would be wonderful, we would have 2 rooms. That's where we really felt, trying to be part of a neighborhood and good neighbors, that just 1 floor would mean much less of an issue, taking away some of the view of the lake from the person who lives across the street from us. So we opted for just the single story.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Go back to the site plan there, Matthew. So a little bit, yeah, you can see my calculations up there in the right-hand corner. If you drop it, yeah. So I did an impervious area calculation. So you can see there in my calculations that we're at 11.5% pervious cover. And with all the new additions, we'd be at 15.4%. And I believe that we're still within parameters there for impervious cover percentages.
Okay. If it's okay with the Heffernans and Dawn, we will open this up to some, first off, we'll see if any of the board members have any questions, and then we'll look to the public to see if there's any public comment out there. Thank you, Matthew, for putting that up. Are there any questions of the board for the Heffernans or Dawn?
Keith,
Bill?
is the area in the darker orange, is that new construction? And does any of, if it is, does any of that overlay existing construction?
Well, yes. I mean, there's a bump out on the front of the house right there. That will be removed. And there's a porch on the east side towards the lake. There's an existing concrete stairs going in. That will be removed, and a new porch, which is in the darker orange, will be built. So everything in darker orange is new construction. Everything in yellow is existing. And the only parts that will be removed is that concrete entrance there and the front breezeway entrance there, right?
So the area where the arrow is now, that's new construction?
All the, yeah, the darker orange. You could see it poking out there with a lighter orange, the yellow. That's the front entrance breezeway.
Okay.
So that will be removed.
So what prompts my question is I'm having difficulty understanding how this is more conforming. The area with the dark orange is within the 30-foot setback. The area to the water side, I guess would be the east, is more impervious area. moving closer to the water. And one of the considerations that we've typically had as a board, and granted, every situation is different, is that we've been more favorable towards expansion away from the water than we have expansion to the water. So I'm concerned about that, but also I frankly just don't understand how it's becoming more conforming.
Well,
and as far as the drainage, I don't gather. I just can't make the connection. I think it's smart to do that, but I'm not seeing or understanding the connection of that drainage to the proposed, what I would term, expansion of the existing structure.
well, the part that is actually making it more conforming is that frontage on the 30-foot setback. We are currently at 18 feet to the street with that front breezeway. And with the new wraparound porch, we'll be at 19 feet 3 inches. So that's the part that's improving upon its nonconformity. But other than that, I mean, we are increasing impervious cover, which the infiltration structures are positioned in such to take a lot of that roof water. Another part of that is in the porch closest to the lake, there's also an infiltration rain drip edge. You can see the same hatch patterns there where it says 487 feet 4 inches. There's a drip edge there that is collecting the stormwater. And there are two downspouts on the front edges of the existing house, right in that corner and the other one. Those downspouts are now just spilling out onto the land and headed to the lake. Those are also going to be captured into these infiltration swales. They'll be turned and forced to spill the roof water into those infiltration swales to help get that surface water into the ground. So that's another improvement of addressing the additional surface runoff from the additions that we're proposing.
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry. I think that the infiltration improvements, I don't know that that's a part of the variance. I don't believe it is, but it seems to me those can be done regardless of whether the variance is approved. And looking at the difference, the 1.5 feet on the roadside, that looks, I don't know how long that is, but let's say it's 8 feet, and that's an entry, I gather, to the house. The additional wraparound porch seems to be significantly greater than the area being removed. Now, maybe I'm just not reading it well to scale. I admit I need glasses, but it just, I'm sorry, it just rings hollow to me. So, but I appreciate your explanation.
Hmm.
Other questions of board members?
Eric Callio, just a question on the dock. I noticed that's in that darker orange color. I don't know if you had brought that up yet, but is that part of the improvements too?
No, it's not. That's a yellow, and that's just existing conditions. We're not making any improvements there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
This is Ann Kersinski. I had a question.
Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, with so I guess a big thing that Mike Jasmine has addressed and Mrs. Heffernan has spoken to is with regards to safety. This structure has been existent, correct me if I'm wrong, more than 100 years old. If it was originally a barn and was moved to this location years and years ago. So they're trying to maintain the rural character of it and make those changes that are needed to make the house livable with respect to getting it more in code for safety reasons. If there were were a fire and people had to go in for any reason to get either upstairs or down into the cellar, I'm seeing that as, you know, it can be challenged presently for them to get up and down. So, and Bill, I think I see what they're talking about where the dark orange there, where the driveway is and where the water is coming in. That's what they're talking about is changing the structure that, you know, that little bit in my mind. So I just wanted to, you know, make some reference to the, you know, the safety of the dwelling at this point in time. And, you know, these are some changes that may need to occur.
Other comments or questions of board members? By board members? I have a sort of a question for Mike. Your memorandum that you sent to us dated the 1st of February mentions code, mentioning that the new stairwell drawn to code is a presumption that the existing stairwell does not meet code. It doesn't explicitly state that, but I'm curious to know what your assessment of the current stairwell is.
No, it does not, Keith.
Okay.
It was the only code issue I looked at while I was in the space because that was the question at hand.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? You'll get more chances. This is a public hearing. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this case?
Hold on, Keith, I have Jeanette Groom. So Ms. Groom, I'm gonna allow you to speak here.
Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, thank you. This is Jeanette Groom at 6 Pitcher Point. So I am one of the houses directly across the street from Sheila and Bill. And I just wanted to say that Bill was kind enough to meet with me the other day and to show me the plans and to map out on the property how far the extension would come out on the east side.
Okay.
So I could understand how it would affect my view of the pond. And I really appreciate the effort that both Sheila and Bill have made to accommodate me, their neighbor across the street, which is very kind of them. And I had no idea, and I apologize, Bill and Sheila, for my water drainage into your property. I had no idea. But I think you know, all the attention to the drainage is quite interesting. And I think it sounds wonderful that they're able to do that. And I'm also happy that the house will be safer for them because I know they plan to retire here. And it's, of course, very important as we all age that we're safe. So I am very supportive of all the changes that they want to make. And that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other members of the public have any questions, concerns, anything to say?
Keith, at this time, I don't see any other members of the public with their hands raised.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board?
Keith?
Yes.
Matthew, do you have a picture of the staircase in question?
Let's see. I guess I'll ask on if
I didn't have a picture of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you can.
Can you point it out in the existing conditions?
Yeah, I don't know if you're able to direct me to it in the floor plan here.
It's right in the center to the left, right there.
Right
is the
here?
stairwell. Is that
Yeah.
correct? And so it goes up and down at that point, I believe. It goes down to the basement there and it goes up to the second floor there.
I'm not seeing.
It may be helpful to compare it to the stairs going to the outside in the lower right, and then the deck below that. So that's what a code tread should look like. Then you can see the tread inside the home.
Got it.
Yeah, it's very narrow, very steep.
I can tell you that it has 11 steps, and the steps are quite high. So it's traversing, you know, the 8 feet it needs to get up in a very steep manner.
And it's just as steep going to the basement, correct?
Much worse.
Oh, it's even worse.
I mean, it's not even really finished. It's
Right, it's more like a ladder.
Wow.
it's a bit treacherous holding a basket of laundry.
Exactly. And the new floor plan shows the laundry brought upstairs, right, next to your piano?
Yes.
Right. You can see right in the center of that layout, that's the laundry area proposed.
Keith, if I could make some observations before we get
Sure,
to
Bob.
the
Absolutely.
I am more receptive to Don's point about the reduced setback from the road. You know, the point where it's nearest to the road has receded. So the encroachment, while the volume may be larger, it is less of an encroachment in terms of distance from the road. What I'm hearing about the drainage in the neighborhood and the impact of this project with gutters and containment, and the hydraulics or dynamics of the neighborhood, what I'm hearing is positive. Also, the safety issue, we often consider safety to the dwellers. I think that's stairway issue, safety is pretty clear. I think the aesthetic, it's going to be a greatly improved property in the neighborhood based upon what I can see now and what the plans look like. And finally, I would observe that I'm not sure we can find a property in this neighborhood that meets setbacks. This is part and parcel of Wilson Pond and specifically Pitcher Point. You know, we don't see neighbors all concerned about this because they're already on top of each other. So those are some observations. They're not directed at any of the specific factors, but those will help inform my decisions when I look at the factors.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Any other board members, comments, any comments, members of the public?
Yeah, this is Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Don, I thought you did a really good job putting in some information about the waterway and the swells. And I think Bill has a point. I'm going to read into his comments a little bit that to some degree, water issues are a big problem. And certainly they're a problem if groundwater's running into a lake, but it's not part of this application because it's not germane to the basic questions we have to answer. But I thought it was very entertaining, and I also thought it was very informative. So my understanding, knowing the families quite well, that used to be that pond, actually, we call it a lake, but it's actually a man-made pond. That used to be a grazing field for the dairy farm right there. And PSNH, what was called PSNH at the time, came in and took it by eminent domain from the family and told them they were going to use it for power. And that's the reason it exists now. And for many years, there was actually a floating island in there. So all of that to say, none of those houses were actually built to be houses. They were actually built to be summer cabins on what was essentially a power generating pond. So that goes to Mr. Mitchell's point. I doubt there are any properties, with the exception of Keene State College, that meets any of the setbacks anywhere on body of water. It was just never built to be that way.
Okay.
So that's an editorial comment. Now I just want to do a little math with you if you don't mind. So the existing bump out on the front, if I've done, I'm going by the sketches here, so it's abstract, if you will, okay? It looks like that's about 46.8 square feet that you're going to be taking off. Okay?
Yeah.
You'll be adding on approximately 90.5 square feet. But if I take, Matthew, if you can bring your arrow down to the orange, but where the property, where the setback line is on the addition.
Sorry, Brian.
Yep.
Talking about the 50-foot setback?
No, up to the 30-foot setback.
Oh, the 30-foot setback. Okay.
And to the orange. So below his pointer would be essentially, for this conversation, conforming because it's inside the setback.
I see where you're going.
The outside of that setback. So I've allotted for 90.5 square feet of addition, but I've taken out 40 square feet because it's inside the setback. So you're adding really essentially, taking up 49. So essentially 42 additional square feet going back in. You might close on the math.
Right.
Outside the setback, you're really taking away 46 and adding in 41 and change.
Yeah, with the open porch, right?
With the open porch.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Okay.
This is Ann Kersinski. I just have one more observation, and you could probably show, Matthew, if you drag down just a little bit, is the 125-foot setback really in the middle of the road?
Yeah. Yes.
It is. This is the location of the 125-foot setback. So.
Wow. And show me where what the state has, the 50-foot is right there.
Yep.
Right.
So most of their house is actually within the state's recommended 50 feet. Okay, I just was curious. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ann. Are there any other?
Keith, if I may, just a quick observation. Just in talking about the front of the house.
Yeah.
In that darker orange area that would be in the 30-foot setback. It's been raised, but that would be, for the most part, that would just be an open air front porch, as shown here in the architectural drawing. So we still count that as a structure, so it still needs to meet the setback requirements, but it's not an enclosed space. It's entirely open air. So it's kind of, a wooden kind of deck platform.
It does have a roof over all of it, doesn't it? Though, from what am I seeing it correctly?
It does. It's just it's not enclosed.
Yeah.
Habitable space. So.
Yeah. Conditioned and so forth.
Keith, if I might.
Yes.
And this isn't meant to take a side, mind you. This is meant because when people come in and talk to me about plans every day, as they do, and we discuss good ideas and bad ideas, aging in place is, in my opinion, a good idea. People are staying in their homes longer these days. I would note that the first floor extra living room with the fireplace there is convertible to become a bedroom when the day comes that they decide they don't want to do any stairs anymore. I think this is particularly pertinent in this particular plan because of those winders. When we have our emergency service personnel who do hundreds of calls a year for assist lifts and things of this nature, bringing a gurney down a stair that switches back is not joyful. So long story short, we're not just talking about the stair, and we're talking about the aging in place thing too, which is becoming a bigger and bigger design feature of a modern home. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Very good.
Well, doesn't the layout also include a guest bedroom in the front there?
That bedroom in the front, that would serve as a den now, but would serve when we needed it to as our bedroom. The other bedrooms are all upstairs.
Right. So that could serve if after aging for some time, you can't handle the stairs. That's an opportunity to take on that bedroom.
Yes, exactly why we wanted it there. Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make that point.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Keith?
Bill?
Keith, with all due respect, aging in place is not a part of our ordinance. And I think that it's not necessarily germane to this particular circumstance, but I think before we as zoning board members take an approach that lends itself towards this concept aging in place, we really need to defer to Matthew to have some discussion with the planning board.
Mhm.
We did that with regard to, what was his name? The one that I got in trouble over, not his name, but the other guy, Tom. You know, we ended up changing our ordinance, and now the state conforms with it, where we allow variances in situations where there's potentially a short-term need, like a ramp on the front of a house that encroaches on the setback, with the understanding that that ramp would go away when the need is no longer there. I would just caution the board on considering a decision based on aging in place, which we don't define and we don't have in the ordinance. But my question is, what are the special conditions that create a hardship for the property? If all of these lots have drainage issues, what separates this lot and gives it special conditions that the others do not have?
It's because it's all going through our land.
You mean the fact that that we're the lowest lot on the street and it all runs through our yard? That would be a special condition.
Maybe I heard incorrectly, but I heard, and I don't know, maybe it was Brian, but I thought I heard someone say that these properties all experience drainage issues.
Only in that they all drain through our yard.
So no one else along your side, the water side, has any drainage issues that are coming off of either 32 or Pitcher Point?
Yeah, I think Brian was stating that none of the houses on the pond are conforming. I think that's what he was getting at, right, Brian? But I don't think he was talking about the drainage, but the way Mr. Scott had described the drainage, as I was hearing it, was that this property is getting the water from across the street, as well as the neighbor on the left. It's getting all that water. So am I correct?
Right. Yeah, because the neighbor to the west needed to build up a berm next to the road in order to keep the water off their property. And you can see that sort of triangular driveway that they have, and that is sheeting onto this property. So they're keeping the water off the street from entering their property, but it eventually ends up on this property, as well as the water from across the street. So this property is quite different in this whole neighborhood of receiving the majority of the surface water trying to make its way to the lake. And that makes it different from all of the neighboring properties that are surrounding this property.
Thank you. I wasn't debating whether any of the properties were conforming. I don't believe there could be more than one or two around Wilson Pond that conform.
Well, I'm just trying to say that this particular property is, dealing with drainage more than all the other properties surrounding it.
And I appreciate that. That's really what I was going after, is what makes your location unique in comparison to the others. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is Ann Karasinski. I have one more question, because since Bill had raised it, and that had to do with, is this, I see it as a safety issue within the home. where the stairs are as steep as they are, and this is something that, you know, perhaps they've known about when they bought the property, but, you know, needs to be addressed. Is that something that, I mean, in my mind, makes the house, certainly makes it unique. But is there would there be a need to go to like a different board in order to get this addressed? You were talking about having ramps put in, like if they needed a ramp for whatever reason. Maybe I misunderstood what you meant, Bill.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I didn't realize you were asking me. No, what I was saying was that with regard to the concept of aging in place, that it's not something that's defined in our ordinance, and it's not a concept that's been discussed with regard to the public. So I'm just cautioning board members to be careful of that, because we aren't the ones that create the definitions. With regard to the ramp, it was a situation where a gentleman had work done on his property. Unfortunately, it was done by a contractor who didn't get a permit.
Oh.
And it was to allow him to have use of his property. He was either wheelchair bound or walker bound, or perhaps both. And ultimately, because of the objection of a neighbor, we really didn't have the capability to grant him the relief that he desired. And unfortunately, you know, many of us have struggled with that decision, because he lived out the remainder of his life, which was quite short, unnecessarily challenged, because he didn't have ramps that would have been helpful for him.
Okay.
And so we went through our rules of procedure, and I think that I thought we did it before the state, but the state has since allowed a temporary variance in a case of ADA compliance, to allow a homeowner who is wheelchair or walker bound the opportunity to enjoy their home. And so the example I gave was putting a ramp in that would encroach on, say, the front setback.
Right.
But that ramp would be useful as long as the need was there. And then when the need went away, the ramp would go away.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I'd like to just point another thing out. Looking, Matthew, at the setbacks, there's the 30-foot setback and the two 20-foot setbacks on the property. Leave it right there. And then we have the state's 50-foot setback, because if we're successful here, we're going to be going to the state for a shoreland permit. So there's sort of a building envelope other than the 125-foot setback from the lake. That building envelope is defined by that 50-foot setback, the two 20-foot setbacks, and the 30-foot setback. And you can see that we had concentrated all of our expansion as closely as we could within that building envelope that meets the majority of the setbacks. So this layout is attempting to occupy that legal space as much as possible.
Thank you.
I really have to dispute that. We don't have the luxury of working with the state's 50-foot setback. Our town, in its infinite wisdom back in the 90s, adopted the 125-foot setback, and we've had to deal with that. I recognize it obviously is to your benefit to utilize the 50-foot setback, but that's not our setback. Where if we grant this variance, it's not to a 50-foot setback, it's a variance to a 125-foot setback.
Right, understood.
Other board members? And the members of the public?
Keith, at this time, I don't have any other members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you, Matthew. Any other question, board members? Brian? Any other questions, Brian? Just going to run through here.
Sorry, I was on mute. No.
Okay. Hearing none. Bill?
All set. Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome. Ann?
Yep, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Bob?
I would just observe that our 125-foot setback is all about water quality and protecting our bodies of water. And this this project strikes me as beyond neutral with regard to the quality of water in Wilson Pond. I think I see with the catchment areas, the gutters, this seems to me independent of the 125-foot setback to be a net positive to water quality on Wilson Pond.
Thank you. This is a seemingly simple becomes complicated sort of project here. I do echo what Ann said relative to safety, for sure. And Mike has confirmed what we have, and you've described adequately what you have and what you're trying to overcome there. As Bill said, we struggle with the setbacks here, Swanzey Lake. I think what the board has tried to do over the years is to look at things as to whether it becomes things become more or less non-conforming. We try to avoid the former by not having things become more non-conforming. I understand where Bill was coming from, and I appreciate Brian's number crunching. I don't think this really becomes any more conforming, but maybe no more non-conforming. It's just if I can use a double negative. So it is complicated, but I think all of you have done a good job at painting a picture of both the applicant and the board. Thank you very much for the questions you've had and the way you put it. So as no members of the public, Mr. and Mrs. Heffernan, anything else to say, or Dawn, before we close the public hearing and we'll deliberate and move on? At that point, unless we reopen the public hearing, we won't be able to interact with you and ask questions or have you ask questions. So is there anything else to add before we close the public hearing?
I would just say I appreciate all of your careful consideration and look forward to your approval.
As do we.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the incredible effort and time and work. We know this board well, and you are wonderful at how you deliberate everything. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Unless any of the board members have an issue, let me know. I'm going to likely close the public hearing here. No more questions of the applicant or anything of that sort. I think we've been around the horn here, so we'll close the public hearing at this point in time. Does the board have anything to add to the conversation before we hit the questions? Bill?
I'm all set. Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome. Thank you. Brian?
I'm all set.
Ann?
All set.
Bob?
Set.
All right, let's go to the questions then. Could the variance be granted without being contrary to the public interest? Brian?
Yes.
What's that?
Yes.
Yes.
There's no evidence to the contrary.
Okay. Let me see. Bill?
Yes.
All right. Ann?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll concur in that should a denial of the variance happen, I don't see any corresponding benefit to the public that would outweigh the loss to the applicant. So number 2, would the spirit of the ordinance be observed if the variance were granted? Bill?
No, the primary setback for me on this one is the 125 feet, and most of the expansion, if actually all the expansion, is within the 125 foot setback. And the purpose of the 125 foot setback is to protect water quality. I think that the infiltration systems that they're putting in are tremendous with the gutters and everything else, but that could be done without the variance being granted.
Okay. And
Well, I feel that the ordinance, I feel the answer would be yes
Okay.
for me for some of what Bill said, but the spirit of that 125 foot setback is to protect the water quality. I believe the applicant has made some very thoughtful efforts to do so, and that the areas where the house is going to be moved is not encroaching on any neighbors, and we haven't heard anything to the contrary. So I'm going yes.
okay. Bob?
I'm going yes on this one also. I think Ann put it very well.
Thank you. Brian?
I also am going yes on this, and I agree.
All right. And I think I'll vote yes on this as well. I think relative to the setbacks, it doesn't appear as though, except for maybe some volume, there's no greater encroachment into the setbacks by what we're seeing here, as it turns out. So we'll move to that would be a 4-1 vote there. We'll move to the next question, which would granting the variance do substantial justice? Ann?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Well, again, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, this particular question, right? Substantial justice to property owners.
Mm.
Wouldn't have put their application in, so yes.
Yes. Bill?
No, for the same reasons as I gave for number 2.
Thank you. I'll vote yes on this one in that I think overall this kind of goes back to the spirit of the ordinance as well. I think given the plan and the safety concern that gets alleviated, that this granting of this variance would do substantial justice. Question 4, could the variance be granted without diminishing surrounding property values? Bob?
Yes, there's been no evidence to the contrary. The neighbors appear to like the project that we've heard from.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, there's no evidence to the contrary, so yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And I'll concur. We have no evidence that this would diminish surrounding property values. Do special conditions of the property exist that distinguish it from other properties in the area? Brian?
Oh, sure, you're picking on me, huh?
Sure.
Well, I think some really good points have been raised on the pro and con side of this.
Right.
My view is that the whole purpose of a variance is to allow something to be done that is not in step with the regulation. The regulation's 125 feet. If they were in compliance with that, they wouldn't be in front of us. So, if I look at those few houses that we're talking about on Picture Point, the water issue is probably the only one. That's a pretty low piece of property there. On the backside of Wilson Pond, they're all higher in elevation. But if I look at that entire area, you know, you have to look at 32 and properties across from 32, and, you know, they're not bound by the 125-foot setback rule. And so I think this particular property has demonstrated by a professional and documentation's been given to us that there is a water issue from other properties flowing through this property. And it is a low area. And even the neighbors have shown that. So I say yes for those reasons. Over.
Okay. Bill?
I agree with Brian. Yes.
Thank you. Ann?
I agree with Brian. Yes.
Okay. Bob?
Yes, Brian has said it all.
I'll also vote yes. This isn't like all the properties there. I think it's part of the special conditions of the property, or its condition. What it was a barn. It's now, which is now clearly has a code issue that is glaring, and that those two special conditions alone, I think, do distinguish it from other properties in the area. So, owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other property in the area, there's not a fair, do you agree that there's not a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of the provision to the property? And we'll start with Bill.
No, I do not agree.
Okay. Hold on, okay, no. Ann?
Well, okay, hold on.
Sure, take your time. We've established that there are special conditions of the property that it distinguish it from other properties in the area, and then owing to those special conditions, which we all agreed upon, do we agree that there's not a fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of our ordinance, the public purpose of our ordinance, and the specific application to the property, and its specific application of the provision to the property? Bill has voted no.
Could you let me think about that a little bit?
Yep.
And if I could help, I think your answer would be yes, because it would be consistent with how you've rationalized your decision throughout. It's a really difficult wording.
Yes, it is.
I struggle with the wording because
we do here.
I find it difficult, but all right, I'll say yes then, because
we can always come back to you if you'd like.
okay, well, I think I'll be all right.
All right, thank you. Bob?
I'm yes here. I think this is a net positive to the water quality of Wilson Pond, and the other setbacks are a marginal increase and not prohibitive.
Brian?
I say yes, and then I also add the addendum that I've offered several times before. We should take the liberty to reword this question and not use parabolic phrases from the Napoleon age owing to the special condition. You know,
we'll work on that. I'll also say yes as well, particularly focusing upon the special condition of the property is the condition that it's in relative to health and safety. So I'll vote in the affirmative as well. And secondly, is the proposed use a reasonable one?
Mr. Chairman, I want to stop you for a second.
Sure.
I think you just glossed over something and raised it, triggered it in my old feeble brain. I don't think that point should be glossed over. We've even had our town employee testify to the fact that the conditions really are not safe. So you raise a good point, you know, with the
thank you
and all of that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, and A2, is the proposed use a reasonable one? We'll start with Ann.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Having a, resolving a safety issue within, for a homeowner within our town, we need to put the, safety needs to be right up there. And, other considerations are, improving the pond.
thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
I concur. It is a reasonable use. So we met both A1 and A2, meaning we don't have to go on to B. That's been a motion on this application.
A short timer motion, Mitchell.
He may not be short time. We're going to hang on to him. He's too valuable.
Okay, I move that we approve this application.
We have a second?
I second that we keep Bob and that we approve the application.
Thank you very much. It's moved and seconded to approve the application 21003 for the Bill Hattendorf and Sheila Heffernan. Any question on the motion? Everyone comfortable what we're voting on? Looking there, I will ask Beverly to step in.
Okay. Ann Karasinski,
Yes.
Bill Hotwalker,
No.
Brian Rutgers,
Yes.
Bob Mitchell,
Yes.
Keith Tebow.
Yes,
Okay, the motion passes 4-1.
thank you. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith, if I could interject
Please.
to the applicants.
Yes.
This is an opportunity to pontificate that if you and your neighbors, you've got a tremendously strong association on Wilson Pond, would coordinate efforts with the people on Swanzey Lake, you could potentially put us out of the misery, or at least the misery that I experienced in your public hearing.
We
There's
will work on that.
opportunities to relax the 125-foot setback. There's opportunities to relax the no expansion of a non-conforming use.
Right.
Okay.
Utilize your numbers.
Maybe put us out of business.
We don't
That
want
would
to
be
be
good.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
right.
you, Bill.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on to ZBA number 21-004, which is a special exception application for Avenue Development Group requesting a special exception pursuant to Section 5, Article B, 2B of the zoning ordinance for an 84-unit multifamily residential dwelling on property situated off West Swanzey Road, shown at Tax Map 72, Lot 98, subject property located in the business district. I will recuse myself from participating in this case. And I'd ask that my stature, if you will, as a panelist be taken away for this point in time. And
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Bill.
I will ask the same. I'll be recusing myself.
Very good. Brian Rogers has boldly said he would step up, and with the assistance of the other board members, will take the reins of chairman off of this. I'll turn it over to Brian and Matthew at this point.
Okay, thank you, Keith. I'm gonna change your designation to attendee along with Bill, and then after this case, I'll promote both of you to panelist again.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll mute myself.
All right, well, I guess I drew the short straw, so thank you. I'm going to try to muddle through this with the help of Bob and Matthew. This is the first case that I will be chairing and hopefully the last. We'll see how we do. So Avenue has come to us for a plan to do an 84-unit multifamily building. And I'm going to have Bev read to us, please.
Oh,
Brian, could I just ask you who you're seating for this hearing?
That's a really good point. So we got a seat. So the regulars would be Eric and I'm writing it down as I go. And Ann, correct?
so
No, Mitchell and Callio are the two alternates you currently have before the two new alternates were sworn in today.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
just have Ann and myself as the regulars.
Yes.
Okay,
So
So
you
we'll
need
see.
one, you need another alternate to be seated if you have 5.
okay. So we got Bob seated, Ann, Eric, myself. And she wants to be in trial by fire, so let's throw Jill in there. Is she crying or smiling? I can't tell. So seated for this, we have Eric, Ann, Bob, myself, and Jill.
Thank you.
Okay.
and
You'll read the case to us, Bev?
Sure, be glad to. ZBA 21-004, special exception application. Avenue Development Group requests to grant a special exception pursuant to Section 5, Article B, 2B of the zoning ordinance for an 84-unit multifamily residential dwelling on property situated off West Swanzey Road and shown at tax map 72, lot 98. The subject property is located in the business district.
Thank you for that. Matthew, you have anything to add into this before we move forward?
yeah, Brian, if it's all right with you, I just have some background information I'll go over quickly.
Yeah.
So first, I just wanted to pull up an aerial map of the property, the subject property. So the property boundaries are outlined in red. On the north side of the property is Perry Lane. On the east side of the property is Route 10. Just for some context, the Camarlo Supermarket is located to the south of the property. To the north is the Turmoil business. And then on the east side of Route 10 is the Princeton Square apartment buildings. And then on the western side of the property is the Cobble Hill condo development at the end of Perry Lane. The subject property is approximately 5 acres in size. And I'll quickly just go through a couple slides I have of the development proposal and then turn it over to the applicant to provide more information on what is being proposed for the site.
Matthew, interrupt you for a second. Can you go back one slide?
Sure, yep.
So that over to your left, you said that's the Cobble Hill condos?
That's correct, yep.
Is that the same down below?
That's right, it extends down below as well.
Okay, all right,
So,
thank you.
yeah, and it extends further west from here as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Matthew, could you just for the record, so I can, how many, what's the acreage again?
It's approximately 5 acres. It's just under 5 acres.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just to quickly go over the site plan, a total of 84 units is proposed. That would be divided between 2 buildings shown on the plan here, 42 units in each of those buildings. Parking would be centrally located between the buildings and then also to the rear of the site as well. 1 curb cut is proposed on Perry Lane, shown here. And at this time, NHDOT would not permit an additional curb cut on Route 10. Just for some background information, a couple of years ago, there was a proposal for a John Deere dealership on this property that went through site plan review with the planning board and got approval. And at that time, DOT looked at their application to put a curb cut on Route 10 And given the number of curb cuts on the adjacent property, DOT would not approve a curb cut for that development. And after speaking with DOT about this current application, they've said again that they would not allow a curb cut for this development on Route 10. The applicant is proposing to connect to the West Swanzey Water Company water line and also to the town sewer line. And just to note, this is a special exception application with the Zoning Board of Adjustment. If this were to be approved, the applicant would need to submit a site plan review application with the town's planning board. And then the final slide I have is elevation drawings of the buildings. This is showing one building, but the buildings would be the same in appearance. There are 3-story buildings with a proposed height of 32 feet. Public hearing notices have been sent to abutting property owners and posted in town, and notice has been published in the Sentinel. We have provided public comments from 2 residents in the packet, and then we received several additional correspondences via email since the packets were distributed last week. And all of those email correspondences have been provided to the zoning board members. I have also provided those comments to the applicant so that they are aware of those concerns that have been raised by residents. Also, I'll note the applicant provided a letter from an appraiser that was emailed out to the board last week following the distribution of the packet. At this point, we haven't received any concerns from department heads about the application. And with that, Brian, if it's okay with you, I turn it over to the applicant to provide more information on their proposal.
Thank you.
So, Jack, I just want to make sure that, is there anyone else I should be from your team that you would like to be a panelist at this point? And Jack, I think you're muted right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
You can, okay, great. Well, thank you, Matthew, for giving such a great overview of the development that we're proposing here tonight. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and congratulations to the new board members who have been seated, who are willing to sit in on this particular hearing this evening. My name is Jack Franks. I'm with Avenue Development Group, located in Walpole, New Hampshire. With me this evening, I have counsel J.P. Harris from She Anthony Bass and Green. I have architect of record Tim Sampson, who's with me, and also on the line this evening, I have Tom Duffield, civil engineer of record. So the proposed development on Route 10 is located in the business district, and it is an 84-unit multifamily housing development located in the west side of Swanzey. The property meets all zoning requirements pertaining to the setbacks, lot coverage, building height, building area, parking, and lot size. The actual size of the lot is 4 acres. It's not 5, but there was, I think, another acre that was peeled off a number of years ago through a lot line adjustment. But the setbacks that we have are 75 feet from Route 10, which meets the setback requirements. And lot coverage is 54%, which basically leaves us 76,665 square feet of lawn, virtually 2 acres. Building height, as Matthew had stated, is 32 feet, max is 45. Parking lot is 168 plus spaces. Lot size requirements for the business district is 1 acre, and we have 4 acres. And this is a flat level field with great soils for drainage. Location has great access off of Route 10. Does have private water. We have had contact with the water department. There's no issues with them serving water to the site that we're proposing this evening. We do have public sewer, and we have power available at the site. Can everybody still hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm getting text here saying that that nobody can hear me. So we have a letter from DOT that was sent to everyone discussing the proposed development, and DOT is completely on board with the development project coming in off of Perry Lane. That section of road years ago was widened. There are excellent turn lanes specifically designed for this. And I'm sorry, I'm getting text here. Was Matthew, forgive me, was JP added on as a panelist?
Yeah, I just promoted JP to a panelist.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep. Yep.
So the Route 10 access point off of Route 10 was discussed at length in the letter with DOT, and they think it's an excellent access point. They don't have any issues whatsoever. No issues with traffic there on that particular stretch of highway, and with the turn lane radius there, we're in great shape according to DOT. We do have an appraisal that was sent in from Appraisals Unlimited, which discusses the overall site, which I'm sure everyone's read and had a chance to digest, and talks about diminished values, which there are none. The site is 84 units, 3 stories, 2 separate buildings, but connected to one another through the parking area that Matthew discussed. We do have 2 proposed rain gardens you can see on the corners right there, Tim's showing you now. And we do have an area in the back where stormwater retention pond is going to be. In preliminary discussions with the soils engineer, he doesn't think that the rain gardens are even going to be necessary because the soil is such good soil for draining that once their calculations are complete, we probably aren't going to need the 2 rain gardens that are out front by Route 10, but that'll be determined at a later date. So overall, it's a great location as far as we're concerned. There are plenty of opportunities there for people to play outside. We've got, like I said, 76,000 square feet of grass areas, and the building in itself will be a newer design, state of the art, with all the amenities that the tenants will need with regard to community rooms and laundry facilities. So it'll be its own little development where we've got a lot of opportunity for folks that are living there to walk next door to Gamarlo's. We have restaurants next door, and it's a great spot as far as we're concerned, and it meets everything under the zoning ordinances as far as the requirements are concerned. I'd like to read into the record the criteria and our responses so that everybody has an understanding of where we're coming from, if the chairman is okay with that.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So Route 10, Swanzey, New Hampshire, Swanzey Road, map 72, lot 98, special exception request per section VB2B, multifamily development, 84 units, multifamily workforce housing. Multifamily development is permitted by special exception in the business zone as the property is connected to public sewer. The project meets the density requirements in section VB2B. 1, is the proposed use similar to one or more of the uses already authorized in the district and is an appropriate location for such use? Our response is yes, multifamily use is similar to one or more uses authorized in the business district. For example, section VB in Swanzey zoning ordinance lists hotel and nursing homes as permitted uses. This proposed multifamily use is similar to those listed authorized uses. But in addition to that, there are multiple other multifamily uses in a business zone along Route 10 and in the business zone in general. Princeton properties, Evergreen, Knowles, Riverbend have been permitted by special exception by the Swanzey Zoning Board of Adjustment and are adjacent or nearby. This proposed project is similar to those that have already been approved. Multifamily use is a permitted use by special exception. This section of Route 10 is zoned business and is encouraged for economic development. There are numerous multifamily retail, restaurant, office, and manufacturing uses along this highway. This project would serve to house a workforce that would be needed by additional business development in Swanzey, as well as that which is already needed by existing businesses. The business district is intended to provide the development of commercial uses that are oriented to the traveling public or are traffic generators of such size as to be more properly located on a highly accessible highway network. Item number 4 on page 2 of the Swanzey land uses, that's a quote. The business district, the location is highly visible location on Route 10, which is serviced by the public sewer and three-phase power. Water is provided by the West Swanzey Company. The intent of the business zone is to encourage economic development, and the subject lot is capable of large-scale development. Route 10 is a state-maintained highway, and as referenced earlier, DOT has determined that it is a great location for our project, has determined that the proposed use will not require a traffic study. And for those reasons, we believe that this is an appropriate location for this proposed multifamily use. Question number 2 says, will such approval reduce the value of any property within the district or otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood? And our response is no. The project will be attractive. It meets all dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance, so it will look like other uses that are permitted as of right. The term injurious, obnoxious, or offensive refer to whether the proposed use might be demonstrated to be a potential nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood due to traffic, unsanitary conditions, excessive noise, vibration, vapors, toxic emissions, and odors. That's sent by Attorney Stephen Buckley of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. So there is no reason to believe that residents who will reside at this property will cause any of these conditions. Further, the property will be managed by a professional on-site property management company, which will ensure this proposed use will not be a nuisance due to traffic. See the letter from DHOT, which we discussed. Unsanitary conditions. The property is serviced by public sewer, excessive noise or vapors, or toxic emissions or odors. Number 3 says, will there be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians? And the response to that is no, as we did work with DOT and follow the direction with regard to using Perry Lane for the access property. In fact, discussion with DOT was that they liked the fact that we had several hundred feet for cars to stack if there were people coming out in the mornings and ready for work. So we had ample chute, so to speak, there for people to turn onto Route 10. And again, with those breaking the highway there with the turn lanes, you've got a line of sight 1,000 feet each way. So it's a great spot as far as DOT was concerned. This would allow for smooth traffic flows, excellent visibility for vehicles entering and departing the facility on Route 10. There are no obstruction dips in a road or curves that impact sight lines. In addition, the dual left travel lane I've discussed along this part of Route 10 serves to improve safety to the motoring public, as noted January 19, 2021 letter from Kevin Belanger at DOT. As mentioned above, DOT reviewed the trip generated statistics and determined that the traffic study for the proposed multifamily use will not be necessary. 2015 NHDOT statistics indicate that there are approximately 14,000 vehicle trips per day along this Route 10. Thus, the increased volume of less than 30 cars per peak hour will have a de minimis impact. Residents will have the convenience of being able to walk to their Marlos, the services, ample green space to allow for recreational activities, and residents and there will be ample internal sidewalks as shown on the plan. Number 4, we will adequate and appropriate facilities be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use. Yes, the property is located on a primary north-south state maintained highway. The property is served by public sewer and has 3-phase power. We will have on-site parking which meets or exceeds the zoning requirement. Plenty of green space. We have ample storage space for snow removal and places for pets and dogs on the property. So that's pretty much, I guess, all that I have to say, with the exception of when this does come time for deliberation and a vote. The only thing I would ask each board member would be to make their findings with specificity when they consider each of these criteria, so we understand where each board member comes on these questions and lands on them, so that we understand fully how they voted and why they voted that way. So I'll turn it back over to the chair. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak here. Sorry, I was a little kerfuffle there in the early go there. I couldn't tell if everybody could hear me, so thank you.
All right, well, before we go to opening this up to the public, I have a couple of points of interest to discuss here. One, Matthew, I see that this is being recorded, so correct?
Yes, I'm recording
That's
it.
right.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah,
The other
the whole meeting has been recorded.
Great, thank you. The other thing is, before the other chair comes back and reprimands me for not offering due diligence, it's 5 minutes past 9. We're just getting ready to enter deliberations on this case. Should we entertain a motion from the board to see if the other 2 cases would like to have their cases continued to next week, or sorry, next meeting?
How do you move this thing? Okay, here.
Your thoughts, Matthew?
Well, yeah, I think, Brian, I think that's, entirely up to the board. I know it's your, in your rules and procedures, we have this check-in at 9 o'clock. And as part of your rules and procedures, you typically don't open up a new public hearing after 10 p.m. So I guess I'd leave it up to the board how they'd like to proceed on it.
Any opinions from the board? Should we ask the other applicants if they want to continue, or just let it ride for now and check in later?
Yeah, this is Ann. I think we might, I don't know that we could leave them hanging on the phone and then tell them to wait until next month. I think we want to give Mr. Franks his say and discuss this, spend the time we need to.
Sarah Callio, I support that too. I think it'd be a better use of the other applicants' time if they want to decide to continue now to next month. So you know where we're in the evening.
Yeah, my thought on this is that this application, we could easily spend an hour on it. And even if we did complete it within an hour, I would not be excited about taking on new applications after 10. So I would entertain requests from the other applicants. And
All right, Matthew, should we ask Dory Matson and the representative of Suburban to their thoughts?
Yeah, Brian, I'm just promoting Dory and it's Sybil Hall from 17 Suburban Acres, just promoting them to panelists so they can address this question.
So the question before you, Dory, and I forget the person you just said from 17 Suburban.
Sybil.
Sybil, okay, is to continue your cases until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe is March the 15th at 7 p.m. Because I have a feeling this case will go at least another, we're just starting deliberations now. So do you have any thoughts? And if that is appealing to you, then could you make such a request? If not, you can also request to stay and see what happens.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
If it's okay with everyone else, I've had a long day too, so I'll go ahead and let everyone take as much time as they need on this project, and I'll get a notice of when the meeting is next month.
Okay, thank you, Dory. So you'll be scheduled in for March the 15th, and Matthew will get with you sometime this week to get you on the schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just confirming it is March 15th. So.
And I'll just get
follow
an
up with
invite.
Dory. Yeah, I'll send you an email tomorrow with that information.
Okay, thank you all. Have a great night.
Okay, thank you, Dory. Sybil?
Yes. Hello?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
So do you understand the question in front of you
Yes, I do.
and your thoughts?
And that's fine. That makes perfect sense. And March 15th is for building season still okay.
Okay, so Matthew will get with you and just reschedule with you later on in the week.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Matthew, this is Ann Karasinski. I think it goes without saying that they'd be first.
That's right. So Ms. Matson's application would be first, followed by Ms. Hall's application.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so for those that are on the line listening in, if you were interested in the special exception thing for Dory Matson, her case is not going to be heard now until March 15th. So that's the Matthews Road project. And if you're on the phones listening in for the 17th Suburban Acres, and that would be the 23 Suburban Acres project, that also is not going to be heard till March 15th. So you can either listen in on this case here or hang up and join us again next month.
Mr. Rutgers, a point of order, and maybe I should ask this of Matthew. Should there be a motion to the effect of the continuances by the board?
Yes, thank you, Beverly. Yeah, so we would need a motion from the board, and I think you could do one motion for both cases. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion from someone on the board.
Okay, this is Ann Karasinski. I'll make a motion that the last two applicants we continue until next month.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's made by Ann and seconded by Bob.
And I'll just run the roll call. Ann Karasinski,
Yes.
Brian Rutgers,
Yes.
Bob Mitchell,
Yes.
Eric Callio.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jack, I'm going to open this up for public comments here. Have you got anything else you want to add before we do that?
No, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
JP, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point, JP?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Anything from the board before we open it up? Hearing none, seeing none. We're going to open this up to the public now. I see that we have approximately 26 people in attendance. Hands are already raised. You should have a hand that you can hit to raise it to Matthew, who will call on you. I do want to make a couple of points of order before we go to the public. We do have the letters that Matthew stated in the beginning. There's 6 letters that are in the record. All the board members do have copies of them. We do have all the points of interest from the public that are in those letters. But keep in mind that we are a judicial board, and we're only allowed to consider 4 points that we're allowed to vote on. So all of your comments will be taken, and they should be said, and they should all go to the project owners and managers of the project so they can hear your comments and concerns. But we only have 4 points of interest we're allowed to vote on, just so that we're aware. Okay, it's all yours, Matthew.
Thanks, Brian. So I'm just going to call on folks kind of in the order that they've raised their hand. So first I have Veda Crew and Robert Wellington. So I'm going to allow you to address the board here. And when you're ready, you should be able to provide your comments.
So I think we're still muted.
No.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me now. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I have the Robert
Yes, I can see
Wellington.
you.
Okay. Vita will probably have some comments later. I have two issues come to mind immediately.
Tell them where you live.
What?
Address.
You need my address. Okay, 73 Perry Lane, Unit 6. So I'm one of the people who is adjacent to the property. I note several things. One, Mr. Franks has stated that there is ample green space. I don't really see it on this map. The map seems to be almost entirely covered by buildings, road, and parking spaces. So unless the parking spaces are grass, I don't see where the green space is. Secondly, he said that this is similar to properties in the area. He mentioned Princeton, which is across the way. The Princeton Properties has approximately the same number of units. It has buildings approximately the same size, but there are 3 of them. So we are therefore talking about cramming the number of units in 3 buildings over there into 2 buildings over here. I'm wondering what that will do to the quality of the housing provided. He's also mentioned the traffic issue, specifically contacting the DOT about the traffic on Route 10. The DOT is interested in Route 10, which is a state highway. I would ask the town to consider the impact on the traffic of Perry Lane, which is not a state highway. The number of vehicles added here will triple the amount of traffic, actually be more than triple. It will almost quadruple the amount of traffic on Perry Lane. Interestingly, he does not mention the fact that the DOT's letter suggests that they negotiate with Gamarlos and access through their property, through their parking lot. There seems to be no indication that he intends to do that. And as a matter of fact, he has multiple times mentioned walking to Gamarlos. That would indicate that he does not intend to follow the suggestion. Admittedly, it is a suggestion, not a requirement of the DOT. So matters of traffic, matters of the quality of the housing, matters of the amount of green space. Also the issue, by the way, when we're looking at these parking lots, another comparison with Princeton, I noticed Princeton Properties has a considerable number of parking areas which are covered. I don't see any indication that there will be covered parking here, which will raise the question of where these vehicles are going to go when this lot needs to be plowed. Those are the objections that come to my mind immediately. I'm sure if I had longer to think about it, had been given more than about 10 days notice, I could probably think of more.
All right, now I'm Vita Crew. I'm married to Robert Wellington and also live at 73 Perry Lane. And I have in the packet of information, there is a letter that I wrote after we received the notice a week ago Saturday. And since that time, we've had a great deal of time to discuss with some of the neighbors and to do a little bit more research. There are 2 points I would like to make, which I think apply to the questions that you need to answer. The first one has to do with property value. And that is that if you are making the maximum use of a small amount of acreage in the business area there, and that is everything is within the proper limits, but it is the absolute max that it can be in those proper limits, you're ending up with a very, very much a city kind of density in that space. And all of us are concerned about it having the same feel that the rest of the neighborhood has, of there being woods and fields and trees and, you know, places where kids can play, that sense of nature being around us. So I love the idea of a housing development there. I think that's totally possible. It's just that this is kind of the max that could possibly fit in that space. One of my neighbors has already claimed that she would never have bought her property here if there had been a development like that situated here. So what does that do to our property values? Those of us who live on the loop that Cobble Hill Pines in the back. That's very concerning. Also, that whole mentality or the city life approach, what's that going to be like having as neighbors? Will it all fit in with the feel that we have here? Second concern has to do with safety. I respectfully disagree with the gentleman from the Department of Transportation. Having lived here for 10 years, I have watched numerous accidents taking place in front of Gamarlos and along this little stretch of highway. I'd love to see more studies done on, you know, what the statistics are there. We wait a very long time at the end of Perry Lane to turn left or right onto Route 10. There's a tremendous amount of traffic going by at a high speed. And my husband and I walk over around the loop past the school and everything. And so we cross Route 10 frequently, and it is extremely dangerous. It concerns me that if we have a development there, that there will be lots of children who will be needing to cross the street to go to the school or to the park over there. And that when everybody is getting up and heading to work in the morning, there will be a lineup of cars sitting there for a good 20 minutes looking for an opening to get out. That intersection is also the bus stop where they pick up the kids for the high school. Now, when the bus is there, all traffic stops so that the kids can cross the street to get to the bus, whichever side of the street the bus is on. But it really, I feel strongly that we would very soon be looking at petitioning for a traffic light and a crosswalk to make this a safe situation, plus sidewalks for all these kids and the people who are likely to be needing to walk around the neighborhood. I love the idea of there being a link to Gamarlos in some way. I don't hear that being addressed because it makes sense that there'd be more than one exit from this property for fire reasons, if nothing else. So just for consideration, safety and that property of the property nearby and what that's going to do to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that I wrote down your concerns. I saw Jack Franks, the project owner and manager, are writing down the concerns as well. Thank you very much. Jack, do you want to address any of that or just take notes on it? Or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I certainly appreciate your traffic concern. We have documentation from DOT and it's been given to the zoning board as evidence that there are no concerns from the Department of Transportation, DOT4, and I appreciate the questions regarding traffic, but the only piece of evidence that's been submitted is the one that we did, and DOT has no issues with it. Quality of life issue that was raised by the gentleman, I can't really speak to that. These are beautiful facilities. They're beautiful buildings. Quality of life, I guess, is a question I can't really speak to, because I think it's going to be a tremendous facility and a tremendous asset for the community. Green space, we have 44% of the 4 acres is green space. That means grass. Part of that will be a pond where there will be infiltration of the water, but the vast majority of that's going to be areas around the facility for people to congregate. There'll be picnic tables put out there. Gamarlos, we've had discussions with Mr. Gamarlo about the prospects of putting in a connection road. He's not quite there yet. He's concerned that it's going to impact possibly any future development for him. But he did say to me in confidence that, you know, it's something that we would certainly discuss as the project moves forward. And once he sees everything lay out, I think he'll probably be okay with it. I can't guarantee it, but DOT's not mandating it. Plowing, we've got areas for the snow to be taken care of. It's already designed for what we need to handle the on-site snow removal. Property values, we've submitted an appraisal as evidence by an appraiser from the region that knows the area well. There will be no diminished values of property in the surrounding area. In fact, it's been proven that multifamily housing developments of this size and scope generally improve property values in the area. 1 acre is what's required in the business district where we're located. We have 4. And from the rural agricultural aspect end of it, the property behind us is actually, if I'm not mistaken, and Matthew might be able to help me here with this, but it's the Perry Lane in the back is actually in, I'm just want to make sure I've got this right here, is in a residential zone, and I think you need 1 acre there now. So as it is, that development wouldn't be allowed to be built today because it doesn't have the without a variance. So, you know, I think Mr. Gamarlo actually gave the city, if I'm not mistaken, that road coming in on Perry Lane and allowed that project development to happen back there as a cluster development. So, you know, we're in the business district. We're exactly where we're supposed to be, and we are surrounded by other supporting businesses that will be good for the folks that are there. Gamarlo's Market for one, the restaurants next door, and we are similar to the other residential facilities. One across the street, we're 13 feet shorter. We're six units less, and you know, we are very similar to the others in the unit in the area. So that's all that I had for them, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, now I want to ask a question. You said approximately 44% of your land is going to be green space. So I'm
yep.
That would be to the west end near the natural wooded property break. Is that right?
Yeah, and to the east too. If you take a look at this parking lot of the building, I mean the parking lot closest to Gamarlo's, you see where the out front there, where I think Matthew has right there, that whole area there. I mean that's not a little area. That's a pretty good sized area to Route 10. You know, we could put a fence in there somewhere along the lines if we needed to from a buffering perspective. There will be trees in there. But that's a pretty good sized area where Matthew is, where the rain garden is. And again, I don't think we're going to need those rain gardens. We might. I don't think we are. The soils engineer said that the soils are so good there that with a few places for the water to congregate, what is it called retention basins in between the buildings, we'll probably diffuse a good portion of the rain there. So that means the Perry Lane side, around Route 10, around the eastern side of the building, and then in the back area there for the dogs. I mean, there's a fair amount of space there, 44%, 76,000 square feet of green area. I hope that helps.
All right, yeah, it does. Thank you. Because I know that in some of the letters, people were concerned about the view and the sights and seeing it and having no vegetative breaks, trees, lines, and so on. I'm assuming that those tree lines will stay. Of course, those are all matters for the planning board and have really nothing to do. It's not within our jurisdiction of the zoning board, but the questions people are asking. So there you have it.
Okay.
So, Brian, if it's okay, I'll go to the next member of the public with their hand raised. So I apologize. On the Zoom meeting, you are just identified as Dave. So I'm gonna, Dave, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist so you can address the board. And Dave, when you're ready, you should be able to provide your comments.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry, I'm not used to this Zoom stuff here. I can't seem to get a camera on me, but you can hear me. That's all that counts. My name is David Pacho Sr. I live at 66 Perry Lane, and I co-own the house with my wife, Joyce Pacho. I am totally not happy with this project whatsoever. My primary reason is that we moved into this neighborhood over 20 years ago, and we wanted to get away. We had living in a more densely populated area. Our primary concern was to find a nice, peaceful place to live, low population, small population, where everybody gets to know each other and everything is fine. No traffic issues, no noise, no pet issues, anything like that. What we did prior to purchasing the house, due diligence, went to the town of Swanzey, who assured us that this property was in fact business, not residential, because it looked like a nice piece of property to put an apartment building. Shortly after we moved here, well, not shortly after, but years after we moved here, somehow they plant 90 families across the street from Perry Lane, which created a significant traffic issue, regardless of what you think the DOT says. I drive Perry Lane every day, Mr. Franks, and it's not going to be an easy thing to get out of here. Those turn lanes that you were talking about are more for coming into the neighborhood, not for exiting the neighborhood. Other concerns I have is the noise factor. I mean, the traffic for 86 families, 200 feet from my house is not, usually on a summer night, it's beautiful, it's quiet. You can hear just a little bit of whisper coming from Route 10. That's not going to happen on a warm summer night with 86 families, not even shouting distance from my home. Now, I don't know if you'd want to have your family live there, but I don't want an entire group of people living this closely to me when I specifically purchased this home so I wouldn't have to deal with this. Now it's being suggested that it's forced on me, and I don't appreciate it. Other concerns we have is we, as a collective condominium association, we share a dumpster, a trash dumpster. We never had trouble with the trash dumpster, but once the additional units across the street came, even though they have their own facility for dumping, there are things that their facility does not allow them to dump, such as furniture and appliances and so forth. And all of a sudden, when they come through our neighborhood, as they do to relieve their dogs on our property, they've noticed the dumpster in a nice secluded area for aesthetic purposes. And all of a sudden, we've got furniture and we've got appliances, and our dumpster has overflowed many, many times where it wasn't a problem prior to that. Additional problems would be, you've got 86 families confined in that small area. Regardless of the 76,000 square feet, it's still a lot of people in a small area. They're going to want to stretch their legs. And what's a better place to do than walk right down Perry Lane in this quiet, peaceful little neighborhood surrounded with beautiful groomed properties and pines and wildlife. And all of a sudden, it's going to be groups of people walking around the neighborhood, which I don't mind. I'm a friendly person, but I don't want them bringing all their animals in, relieving them on our property, which is a significant problem. Will we have additional police presence? Will Town of Swanzey provide additional security for us? We've had situations, because it is a quiet neighborhood and there is no through traffic, that people can come in, but it's not as easy to get out without getting cornered. I've had to install an 8-camera security system on my property just so to discourage people from kind of walking through my backyard in the middle of the night. And when the camera signals that they're there, I go out on the deck, and instead of saying hello, I'm just happen to be taking a walk, they make a beeline out of the neighborhood. And all of a sudden, we've got 86 more families that are going to come right into this area where I specifically purchased this property because the Town of Swanzey told me that there wouldn't be any residential development in the area other than what's here. So that's how I feel about the thing, and I'm not alone. I've spoken with other neighbors. And as far as property values not going down, I find that impossible to believe. I find that impossible to believe that someone would want to come look at my home and they have to drive through this entire giant complex and then across the street another complex before they get into my neighborhood. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I understand that it would be convenient for Gamarlo's store to have more business and so on and so forth, but it doesn't help this community that has patronized that store for the last 30 years. But that's all I've got to say at this point.
Thank you very much. Jack, you have any rebuttal on that? You took notes?
I did, yeah. I mean, with regard to the traffic, I've spoken on that. DOT has written a letter in the affirmative in our position. Dumpsters, we'll have dumpsters. I can't speak to people dropping furniture off. We have strict policies, procedures for that. The whole facility will be cambered inside, outside. We'll know who comes, who goes. Folks will have keys to get in the building, get out of the building. Fob system. So it'll be pretty tightly managed. As a matter of right, we could put up a hotel, same size. We put up a nursing home, same size, and go right to the planning board. So similar in size and scope. This facility will be. Perry Lane's is a nice road. It's ample. It's wide. It was built correctly, and it can handle the traffic coming in and off of Route 10. And like I said, DOT was fine with the number of units that we had there. No traffic study, no lights required, nothing. They were totally fine with it. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
DOT doesn't live here. They don't drive Perry Lane every day.
Neither do the police. But we don't need them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your comments are appreciated and they're taken and they're written down. And again, I'll state that a lot of the concerns that we're hearing so far are really not in our jurisdiction.
Chairman Rodgers? Chairman,
Yeah.
Could I just ask for the proper spelling of the Patchell's name, the last name?
Dave, can you give us the spelling of your last name?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
His
sir.
last name is spelled P as in Peter, A-I-N-C-H-A-U-D. Senior. My son also owns a home in this neighborhood.
And that last letter is D as in David?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to reemphasize your point that you made with regard to, focus on the use. A lot of these things will be addressed at the at the planning board, and folks will have an opportunity to there. So if I agree with you and concur that, you know, the use aspect of this is what we're really after this evening.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is just manage the expectations that people are concerned, and they have the right to be concerned. They own properties
Sure,
that are.
absolutely.
But I want to make sure that they understand that certain things are, even though we want to hear them because they are germane to us as property owners and body in the town, they're not under our jurisdiction at this point, but valid.
Understood.
Point.
Thank you.
Matthew?
And Brian, and just for members of the board, you know, I would agree with the statement that, you know, there are two separate application processes for the developer to go through. And the site plan review application will include much more detail in terms of landscaping, stormwater management, parking, those components of the development. Just so the board knows, you know, I think it is appropriate for the board, if the board has concerns about aspects of the development that they would kind of like to recommend that the planning board look at in their review process. I do think that's appropriate. So I just want the board members to be aware of that as they're evaluating and looking at this project.
Great, thank you.
So with that, Brian, if it's okay, I'll call on the next member of the public. So let's see, Nancy Mostiller, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist, and when you're ready, you should be able to address the board.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. I don't, it looks like my camera's not on. So my name is Nancy Mosteller. I live at 67 Perry Lane, so right behind this development. My first issue is safety. We have a few kids that go up and down Perry Lane to catch the bus. I'm extremely concerned about the walkers who go along that street to go up to meet the bus. Unless there's sidewalks that keep them safe, I think that will be a major problem. When they originally talked about putting the John Deere in there, it was the curb cut onto Perry Lane, which was to me the most concerning, and primarily because of safety. I totally agree with the traffic issues. You have to live here to know to know the truth of it, I think. But safety is my first issue. The other thing is I know you've said that there's no diminished value, but I don't buy that either. I do think a complex such as this with, it's looking here like there's no landscaping whatsoever, just green. And while grass is nice, that whole section along Route 10 is basically unusable for anything because no mother in their right mind would want their children playing along Route 10. That just would be completely unsafe. So I think the size of the development is enormous given the space. It looks crowded to me. Again, those are all aesthetics, and I know not something that you're really looking at. But quality of life, Swanzey's known for its rural background. That's very often why we live in this area. These buildings do not have that character, which is another concern. Of course, we just don't feel it's appropriate for our backyard. It is zoned for business, and that's what we were expecting, not huge apartments buildings with a lot more traffic. So quality of life, I do believe that there will be an impact to the value of our own homes, primarily because our road is the only way in and out of our Perry Lane circle. Putting that much traffic on it is going to be a deterrent. And that's it from me, other than I don't like the idea at all, but that is not, I know something you can judge in what you're trying to do in this meeting. So
Thank you very much for your comments and your concerns. Again, we've logged them. They are recorded. Jack, any retort on those?
Yeah, I think I can help with one of them. We plan on putting sidewalks in along Perry Lane. So for the children that would be living there with the families, our goal would be to discuss this at the planning board level, coordinate with the town of Swanzey and the sidewalk committee to maintain them. And then along the road, we hope to put in a sidewalk that would go to the bus stop. And then one of the goals would be to build some type of a three-sided shelter of some sort for the children that would be there to catch the bus in the morning so that they could be out of the inclement weather as they wait for the school bus. So with a bench seat inside, something that would serve not only the kids that live here at this facility, but also those that would be walking in the morning to catch the school bus in Perry Lane. So we'll put some time and effort and energy into that. And if we can get it approved at the planning board, we anticipate putting in a sidewalk for safety reasons of our own that would benefit those in the rear as well. I think I spoke to the quality of life and the green area. You know, we may consider a fence of some sort of vinyl fence out front that'll shield, you know, part of the facility from Route 10. But there's quite a little bit of area out there. I think by looking at it here, we've got 75-foot setback. So we're 75 feet to the property line. I think it's another 30 feet or so from there to Route 10. So I think all in all, we've got close to 80 or 90 feet there for a depth from Route 10. So if we put a fence in on our line there, we'll have minimum of 75, 80 feet there for folks to recreate outside. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and I'll echo some of the comments that I've read and heard so far. I think that you have to live in the area to know the area, right? There's a reason why Route 10 is called a state highway. It's because it's a state highway. It's not a back roads country class 5 road. It's a state highway, and people drive it like it is. So that's just an editorial comment. Mr. Matthew?
Yeah, I'm going to call on Nancy. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to call next on Debbie Murray. So Ms. Murray, when you're ready, you should be able to address the board with your comments.
Hello, I'm Debbie Murray. I live at 73 Perry Lane, Unit 8. I'm hoping you can all hear me okay.
Thank you.
I live directly behind the southwest corner of the property. I'm the end unit. So my property or my condo will be the one that is directly impacted. Couple of concerns. First, the traffic in and out of the parking lot will create additional noise, exhaust, and lights. On cold mornings, I expect people will be out there running their vehicles, which will create exhaust, which will come directly into my property. I already have issues with Mike Gomarlo, who allows trucks to park in the parking lot. That exhaust comes directly into my windows. I cannot open my windows. I cannot run fans in my windows. It's noise. It's constant vibration. I lay my head on the pillow and my pillow vibrates. I have contacted the Swanzey Police Department, who has done absolutely nothing about it, short of telling me to go out and tell the truck drivers to shut their vehicles off. So I expect that people out there running their cars in the morning is going to be a nuisance. It's going to create exhaust, noise, and pollution. That is addressing C in the article. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles and pedestrians. That will be a hazard. In addition, I know you mentioned you would put in sidewalks, but there are no sidewalks on Perry Lane. Residents and children walk on Perry Lane. My daughter walks to the bus stop, which is the corner of Perry Lane and Route 10. I don't like that corner of that bus stop. It's very dangerous there. It's horrible when the cars are traveling both ways on Route 10. Cars are pulling out of the Princeton property across the street and someone's trying to pull out of Perry Lane. We have had multiple accidents there. God forbid an accident happened while there was children standing at that bus stop. That would be horrible. Having an additional 100 cars pulling in and out of Perry Lane, at least 184 units, chances are there's going to be 1 to 2 cars per unit. Having those pull out of Perry Lane is going to create an additional hazard for the walkers as well as for the children waiting on the bus. Perry Lane is not very wide. You say it's a wide road. It's wide enough for 2 vehicles, not children standing at the bus, and not really for walkers. The Turmoil building does have trucks and larger vehicles pulling in and out of there, which causes a concern for the children. And I think you keep referring to DOT, and DOT has no problem with the site plans, but I believe, if I'm correct, DOT governs Route 10, but does not govern Perry Lane, so they are not paying attention to what the traffic is like on Perry Lane. That's all I have to say there. And I believe that addresses letter C. And I'm not addressing any of the other concerns, which is the additional people in the area, the crime, things that are not concerning the articles that you allowed us to address here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your comments again are recorded. And Jack, you have anything to retort on that?
Well, there is a buffer zone of trees behind this facility to the west where our property line is. If the zoning planning board needs additional trees in there along that easement, sewer easement, we'll certainly put those in. I mean, the distance, I think, from the edge of the building back to the property line has got to be 120, 130 feet, if not more. I can't speak to the exhaust from the Gomerlos trucks because they're not on our property, but as far as other vehicles, there'll be, there's ample distance from what I can see. So I can't speak to that, but the speed on Route 10, I believe there's 40. So, folks traveling faster than they should there, it's more of an enforcement issue. And the town maintains Perry Lane, so, the Department of Public Works, the folks that had an opportunity to review this, as Matthew said earlier, they didn't have any issues or any concerns at that point. There may be some that come up during the planning board process, but we'll address those at that time. But at this particular time, focus more on the use of the property.
Okay, thank you. Matthew?
Yeah, it looks like I right now I have one more member of the public identified as M. Elworth. So I'm gonna just promote that individual to a panelist here. And so I apologize, I don't know your name, but M. Delworth, if when you're ready, you can address the board with your comments.
You're muted, just in case you were wondering. Microphone.
My name is Melanie Delworth. I live at 29 Perry Lane in the condo units. I did write a letter, and Matthew was kind enough to submit it to the board. But I wanted to speak, trying to stay a little more on point to the 4 issues at hand. And the first one I wanted to say.
You get, sorry to interrupt you. Can you get a little closer to a microphone? It's a little hard to hear you.
Is that any better?
Not really.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Well, it's as high as it goes. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead and do your best. That's fine.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to say is that, like others, I realize that this is business district, and I do not consider an 84-unit residential facility a business. So that's very disappointing to me, and hard to believe that that this is even before us because of the fact that it is residential and not business. And I also disagree with the fact that they say that it's very similar to, say, a nursing home or a hotel or whatever. But it all boils down to the size of this project on such a small plot of land. I just think that it's way, it's just much too large housing, too many people for such a small area. The second thing is that I don't agree. I'm not an expert, but I find it hard to believe, just based on the reasons that I bought here in the first place, that I would find this property interesting if I were here looking at a property here and saw these two big apartment complexes on either side of me. Also, safety, I think, is a huge issue. I don't know what the DOT is thinking when they say that that housing development would result in 30 cars on Perry Lane during peak hours. That seems to me absurd, that you would think that an 84 unit dwelling with at least one car in the family. And they also said that it was to house business professionals, or workforce, if you will, local workforce. That's going to be a lot more than 30 cars. Already, we have a lot of difficulty getting out to make a left turn onto Route 10. And the speed limit may be 40, but I'd like to find a car other than mine that goes 40 on that road. So I do think that safety for residents walking their dogs or just enjoying the natural setting of walking with that many cars, and already we have that speed. So I think safety is a huge issue. It is the Perry Lane, it is the only road that we have to get in and out of our homes. So the thought of all of that additional traffic is very disappointing. And that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your concerns. Again, as with all the other comments, they are recorded, they are written down, and we are listening. I will state that I don't think that Jack was referencing that his project is like a hotel or a motel, or what he was referencing, just for the record, was our town's ordinance, section 5B, which is permitted uses in a business district for the town of Swanzey. There are actually 16 different types of uses. And one of those is hotels, motels, restaurants, private clubs, nursing homes, where they don't need to have any variances or special exceptions. They could just go to the planning board and build. This is also considered a project they could do in this district with a special exception. But yeah, to build a hotel there, you could just do it. So that's what he's really referencing to. But I appreciate your comments, I really do. Jack?
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for that clarification. I don't have any, I think, additional responses for Ms. Delworth, but thank you very much for bringing your concerns to the board and to us this evening. I do appreciate it.
Okay, Matthew?
Yeah, Brian, I'm just going to take, because a couple have brought this up, and I understand the confusion that the property is located in the town's business district. And when you hear business district, you know, you think of kind of a more typical business, a grocery store, a retail store, office building. It's been said, but just to note again, so in the business district, someone can develop a multifamily housing project such as this with special exception approval from the zoning board. So I understand the confusion, but the applicant is going through the correct process to get approval for this development in the business district. I just wanted to note too, I think I've mentioned it to a couple of residents that have reached out to me just regarding safety concerns along Route 10. just to let folks know that, you know, the town shares those concerns, and we are working with our regional planning commission and the Department of Transportation right now on a corridor study for Route 10 that will hopefully come up with some recommendations to address some of those safety concerns on Route 10. So we are aware of them, and we are hoping to work on them shortly following the completion of that study.
Cheers.
Matthew, before you go any further, point of order.
Yep.
It's 2 minutes to 10. Should we poll the board to see if we continue? It looks like we have 2 more public comments, 2 more hands raised. Should we take a motion on whether we continue or whether we hear the comments and table till next month?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Brian. So I think if the board wants to discuss that before we, as you said, I have 2 other members of the public, so maybe we'll make that decision and then can go to those members.
I'd like to make a motion to see if we could continue the meeting.
Tonight or till next month?
To next month.
To next month. So hear the other 2 or stop now?
I would request to stop now.
Other members?
I would suggest if members have it in them, you know, we've had residents waiting for some time to make comments, so maybe allowing 2 more comments and then.
I would second that if Eric would amend it to let the next 2 people speak.
All right, I will amend my motion to allow the next 2 parties to speak and then suggest continuing the meeting the next month.
So we have a motion and.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think we, you know, the 2 people who've been waiting, we should listen to them. And then, you know, Eric doesn't want to continue. I think we respect his, you know, the time that we've all put into this. So.
Okay, so
I'll second that.
Eric that made a motion to hear the next 2 public comments and then close the public hearing, or at least continue the meeting. Sorry.
Yeah, continue the hearing. Yeah.
Seconded that as well as Ann. So.
Yes.
Jill.
Yes,
Yes to what?
I agree to let them speak their comments.
Okay, so we have a motion and a seconded.
There's a motion on the table, Mr. Rudges. Shall I call the roll?
Yes, please.
Okay. Ann Karasinski?
Yes.
Brian Rutgers?
Yes.
Bob Mitchell?
Yes.
Eric Callio?
Yes.
Jillian Exel?
Yes.
And the motion passes.
So we get to have Bob 1 more month. There you go. See how we did that? Okay, Matthew.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So Debbie Gove, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. So Ms. Gove, you should be able to address the board at this point.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Debbie Gove, and I live at 73 Perry Lane, Unit, what number are I? 5. I sent a letter into you, but after listening this evening, I had a few additional questions and comments. First of all, I want to say that I thank you for listening, and I understand that zoning has only 4 criteria there they can talk about and think about, but I do think it's important to hear the comments for Mr. Franks and the development company to hear the comments, but also for the zoning board to decide if there are things that they need to pass on to the planning board, which I understand is under their jurisdiction to do. I feel that, as some others have stated, having only 10 days notice puts us at a disadvantage. We are not professional people doing development projects all the time. So as you answer, Mr. Franks, please understand that you've had the time and the resources to put your plans in place, the arguments, and your evidence in place. And we are reacting, yes, some bit emotionally, but also with some real thought as to what we would like our neighborhood and Swansea to be like. So I know that someone mentioned green space. That's come up a few times. And I do think if you are going to consider that bit of space along Route 10 as play space for children, I would hope to God you would put a fence in, because it doesn't matter how much room you have. A child running after a ball does not stop. So, and traffic doesn't either. So that is one worry for me. I have a question about the stormwater pond, because I'm not totally familiar with that. Is that collecting standing water? And if so, that's a concern to me, that's another mosquito pool or an unsupervised water area where you're saying there could be children. So that is a concern to me. One thing mentioned has been Princeton property. And I know from speaking with them, they have 90 units in their 3 buildings. I look at the size of their property and it appears to be bigger. I do not know that for a fact. So that is a question I'm putting out there. What is the size of that property? And that also does not have green space. However, they are on the side of Route 10 with access to the park, Brown Memorial Field and Cutler School Field. So that alleviates some of that concern about children playing. I also noted, as Robert did, that they have covered parking for many of their cars. And I also noted that there is a privacy fence along much of the property that would back up to a residential area. So that's something that could be considered. In regards to Evergreen and Riverbend, when I went on their websites and just looked at their properties, they both are much smaller in scope. I believe 24 to 30 units. Again, I did not know the lot size, but they are also set way back away from the road on their own road and space, and away from, appeared to be away from residential areas. So those are things we're going to consider, and for you as a development company. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate your comments. I will interject that the fact that you don't know the size of the Princeton properties across the street, I think is a testament that the zoning board at the time and the planning board did a really good job of putting vegetation and trees and buffers and basically hiding that property from Route 10. And as you know, there's a park that's right next door, so they're not coming out onto 10. So, Mr. Franks.
Yes, thank you. Well, we'll certainly take direction from the planning board with regard to the buffering. We'd originally sent in the plans that had fencing, vinyl fencing along one side of it out front at Route 10. We're probably going to consider additional fencing along the Garmarlo side, possibly Route 10, and we haven't looked into the back area yet. But she did bring up a really good point about the infiltration trench to the rear. We may need to fence that, but to answer your question with regard to that, that's stormwater retention pond. So any of the runoff that comes off of the building itself or any of the parking will be put into drainage pipes that will drain to that infiltration trench. And it's designed for the water to dissipate very quickly. Princeton Properties, from what I remember, was on a woodlot when it was being approved. So basically, a lot of the vegetation, a lot of the trees that you see there were already there. We're at a disadvantage in the fact that this is an open field. So we're going to have to plant a lot. And the plans that we have sent show some of the vegetation, but I'm absolutely certain that the planning board will require additional vegetation that'll be planted. So unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of a lot of mature trees that Princeton Properties had. They basically went in and were able to carve out the trees that they wanted gone for that, and the ones that were at the road are mature and larger. We'll put some big ones out front, and wherever we can put fencing, white vinyl fence, stockade fence, so something that's very attractive. We'll have for a buffer zone as well that'll aid in keeping children from running out into the street, but also for a little more privacy from the surrounding neighborhood. So hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Matthew?
Okay, it looks like, let's see, looks like I have Veda Crew and Robert Wellington again.
You have me again.
Okay, hi, Mr. Wellington.
You have me again, very briefly. I just wanted to add one thing, particularly since you are tabling this until next month. This will give you time to do that. Mr. Franks has made the point, although one of you correctly stated that he was not comparing the project to a nursing home or a hotel, but he has on several occasions compared it to Princeton properties. What I would suggest that you do sometime between now and then is take a look at the proposed floor plans for this building and compare the size of the apartments with the apartment in Princeton properties, and then investigate whether this is in fact similar to at least that property which has already been approved. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Matthew, that was the last one, is that correct?
Brian, yes, I'm just double checking. At this point, I don't have any other members of the public with their hands raised. So.
Okay, so what we're going to do for those that are listening in and the board members, we're going to take a motion in a minute from the board, and we're going to continue this case so it remains open as a public hearing. Remember, the board, we're not allowed to be talking about this with anybody. Got a no ex parte on this. Members of the public, on March the 15th will be when we start hearing testimony again on this case. And I see your hand just a minute, Mr. Franks. And anybody that wants to be heard will still be able to be heard at that point in time. Again, we're only allowed to, as a board, we're allowed to hear anything, but we're only allowed to consider 4 points. And we can't consider, when we're considering those, it can't be conjecture, thought, or supposition. It's got to be fact. So we have heard a lot of things that we are going to pass on, that are going to be passed on to the planning board, and we appreciate all your comments. Mr. Franks?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Would it be unreasonable to request a hearing in 2 weeks opposed to a month to allow us to finish up, so the two that weren't able to be heard tonight would have ample time for next month, so that this could be deliberated by the board and dealt with in a few weeks? Or would the board prefer to wait a month and then hear this? And if it were heard in a month, would we be continued, so we'd expect to be first on that list, or would we be bumped to the back with the two that have yet to be heard?
So that's a really good question. As a continued case, I would assume it's going to be the first heard because it's already an open hearing. If the board wants to make a motion to do this in 2 weeks from today, instead of March the 15th, I don't think we have to post it because it's already posted. Is that correct, Matthew?
Right. So we'd have to post the meeting. 2 weeks from today is February 22nd. We've already sent out the hearing notice for the public hearing this evening. So if the board decided to hold a special meeting on February 22nd, we're providing notice to members of the public at this meeting that it's going to be continued to that date. And the agenda would be posted on the town's website in accordance with the posting requirements.
Okay, so I guess
Yeah.
we're covered there. What does the board want to do? Any thoughts, motions?
So that would be specifically to this, to address this project?
That would be the only case heard on that night, would be this particular case.
Well, I'd like to hear from our newest members and see what they think, what they've gotten themselves into.
Yeah, I think Jill quit already, and
Jill quit.
I ran away.
and Bill, I think, is that his name, Bill? I think he's drinking a Schweppes right now. I have a line there.
You looked at his driver's license, so you know his name.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering what normal protocol is in this type of circumstance.
So we've done this in the past since I've been on. It hasn't been very often. Motion Mitchell, you're the most senior person here.
Yeah, it's pretty infrequent that we do this. Our preference over the years has been to deal with it at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And I'm inclined to go that way.
I'm inclined to go that way as well. However, how many other projects are we pushing off if we're getting into, in March, we're getting into building season and we've got two applicants that we haven't heard yet. And I want to be fair to everyone. So what do we have coming up, Matthew?
It's a good question. And so, at this time, we don't have any other applications on the March agenda, other than the two we continued earlier this evening. But the deadline for submitting for that meeting is not until later on in this month. So we could very well get some additional applications between now and then.
Okay, well, I'll go with whatever people recommend. I know Eric wants to cut this short, so. What's your preference, Eric?
My preference, my preference would be just the regular next scheduled meeting in March.
All right.
That's where I stand right now.
I'll second that.
Was that a motion?
That's a motion.
Eric?
Yep, my motion is to continue this matter till the next scheduled meeting, which is March 15th, 2021.
I'll second that for the Ides of March.
Okay, Beverly, would you like to call the roll on that?
Okay, who initiated the motion? Was it Eric?
Eric Callio?
And the
That was
second
me, yes, Eric Kelly.
And the second was by?
Ann Karasinski.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little confused. I thought you already did a motion to that effect. I guess you didn't. When you allowed two other people to speak, that motion was for a continuance of what then?
It was to continue the meeting, but we did not put a date to it. It's just that we made a motion that we were going to hear two more testimonies, and then we were going to close out for this evening.
Okay, that was a continuation just of the meeting. It was not a continuation of the Avon application.
That's
I
correct.
just want to make sure I have it correct. Okay, all right. So this one is for continuation of the Avon application.
That's correct.
Okay, I will call the roll.
March the 15th.
Yes, March the 15th. I've got it. Karasinski,
Yes.
Rutgers,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Callio,
Yes.
Excel.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay, so for those of you that are participants on the line, thank you for your involvement tonight. It'll be the first case hearing at 7 p.m. on March the 15th. And we look forward to hearing you all then and seeing you all back online. Mr. Franks, for your team as well, thank you. And
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I had one question for you. Will there be additional public discussion that evening? Will it be opened back up, or will it be just the board deliberating?
yeah, so we never close the public hearing to continue, but we have to leave it open, so it's still open. So Can be some more public comments.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Yeah, and then after the public, we'll close that, and then it'll go to board deliberation, then the vote, and then we'll move on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew, I don't know if I hand it back to Keith or Bill, or do we just call the evening?
Well, let's see, Bill is still with us. I'm just seeing if,
And there is a question on the Q&A, which I'm assuming you're going to.
yeah, so I was, there's a question of listing the 4 requirements, the special exception criteria that the board needs to review. So I just pulled them up here from the staff memo. So these are the 4 criteria that we've been talking about, just for reference for members of the public who are wondering what those criteria were exactly.
Okay, so I guess I don't see Keith being online anymore. So I guess at this point, I'll take a motion for us to call the evening.
And this is Ann Karasinski. I'll make a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll second Ann's motion.
Bev, you want to call the roll?
Okay, just a second. That was, Bob was the seconder on that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Ann Karasinski,
Yes.
Bill Hotwalker,
Yes.
Brian Rutgers,
Yes.
Keith Tebow. Oh, he's left the meeting, you said. Bob Mitchell,
Yes.
Eric Callio,
Yes.
Jill Excel.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. You are adjourned at 10:19 p.m.
Thank you all.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Welcome
Thanks.
aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you.